Now is the time. A time you'll look back on. A time you adopt as inspiration. You will recollect this time, this moment, right now. Motivate yourself towards success. Overcome. Take over. The time is now.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Loaded Mag NUFC. And for the replay, the review, part 2 of Battleground Europe. I've been looking forward to this one. If anyone missed the first show, go back and watch it. We were looking at teams that could potentially break into Europe, and I think it's been interesting watching it all unfold. But this time, we've got a few new teams looking at this with very much interest as the season's unfolded. But look, welcome everyone into the chat. Great to have everyone already in place for what's going to be a fantastic show. Chris may well be on the way. He's been working away back in to Liverpool and should be hopefully coming on very soon. But also on top of that, just a few things that I have to say. Thank you for all support with all things Loaded in recent weeks. We are so close to 5k. I think just under 200 away. So if you haven't already, click that subscribe button and become a subscriber to Loaded Mag NUFC. And of course, we have him in the chat from Loaded. We send massive condolences to Paulie G, who lost his mum yesterday. So massive condolences to you. Hope you're well. Great to see you in the chat and supporting the channel as always. And yeah, as everyone's saying in the chat, we are thinking of you at this moment in time. But look, we are here to talk all things football and get the opinions of lots of different fans from various different parts of the country. And of course, we'll bring them in now. So we've got Ash, Leicester City fan. How you doing? We've got Rich.
How you doing, Pete?
All good. Rich from Villa Park Pod. We've got D back from Back of the Nest. And we've got little Dan back from Wolves Fancast. How you guys doing? You okay?
Very good, Pete. Very good.
Well, good.
Without league football, it's much better. Let's just say that for certain clubs.
Definitely.
It's great to be back on a Battleground Europe episode, Pete. As you all know, I'm a Real Madrid fan now. So this is definitely the episode for me.
Little Dan, I knew you had something up your sleeve. I knew you would, as always. And look, do not fret. Dan Lawless is on his way. He's been working in Birmingham today, so he'll be on. And we'll have a couple more that will come and join us as well as the show goes on. But look, this has been a really interesting season for lots of different reasons. And look, I'll come to you first, Rich, and because you were on our original show that we did in the summer, and we talked about how the season could potentially unfold. And I'll just pop it up right now so you can have a look on the screen, and you can see yourself in 12th position, 18 points on the board. In terms of how you've seen yourself before the Battleground Europe initial show, where are you seeing yourself now? Are you happy with where you're at? Of course, you've had a change of manager, and we talked about that on away days. But look, do you see yourself as European contenders still? What are your thoughts at the moment?
It's been a bit of a boring one for Villa, hasn't it? Really, to be fair. Yeah, no, mate. I mean, I don't know where to start, to be honest. I know I've been on your show like a few times, and so many times tried to sort of. I think this show before was really positive about the start of the season, the signings that we'd made with like Diego Carlos and Boubacar Kamara, one or two other things that was said, in the press, and obviously Gerrard having a full pre-season and stuff. But for whatever reason, just decisions that he made across the board just didn't work. And there's the feeling around the club just got worse and worse and worse. Even though we won a couple of games in that time period, like Everton and Southampton, it was just awful. Like the football was awful, and it was only heading one way. Very similar to the Dean Smith time, where it was kind of only heading one way when he came in. And then when a manager like Unai Emery comes along, you've got to take that opportunity. 4 Europa League wins, 3 in a row with Sevilla is just unreal. So you've got to take that opportunity when it comes. And had this kind of podcast been 3 weeks ago, I'd have been like, look, man, we've got to just stay up. That's what we've got to look to do, especially after we lost to you guys. But now, after winning two league games in a row, them being Man United, who we hadn't beaten at home since 1995, first away win since May against Brighton, who were flying. There's a bit more positivity around. So, are we on the way to Europe? I'd say no at the moment. I did say 9th, I think, when we first had our this show. So I'm not really going to change from that. I think the signs are looking better. It all depends on January, as it will do with everybody. But the signs are certainly looking better, and I think 9th or 10th, would be where we're looking at the moment still.
Interesting. There's a question here from Lisa. Sorry, Daz will just put it in the chat. Question for Rich. He said, what's his thoughts on Emery? Is he expecting a top 10 finish? Obviously, you've said around sort of 9th, 10th in the table.
Yeah.
But you've got a manager that actually can produce that level of football. So is there a slight possibility that things can turn? We're still early on in the season.
There's always a possibility, and I think again we haven't got too many players that have gone to the World Cup. So is that a positive? I would have to say yes, because those players now get an opportunity to work under Emery's tactics for the next 4 or 5 weeks. Once they come back from their holiday and then go to like the training camp. So that is a positive. Could we get a good cup run? We know he's a master in the cup competitions. Obviously we didn't beat Man United in the Carabao Cup, but if we can get a decent draw in the FA Cup, who knows? So that's an option, but I don't know. I think you're asking quite a lot to maybe get in that, asking a lot to get in that top 5 or 6, definitely. So I'd have to say no, but you never know.
Interesting. Look, I'm always going to come to a rival next. So look, little Dan, I want to get your thoughts on Villa, being that you're in the same vicinity in the country, and there is a little bit of rivalry there. Looking at Villa, they've got now Emery in, Gerrard's out the door. Do you think that they've got an opportunity of getting European football?
No. I'm here to talk serious, Pete. I'm here to talk about serious football today, Pete. There's more chance of me playing for the LA Lakers than Villa reaching Europe this season. I thought we were being serious talking about European football. As far as I'm aware, apart from Ash, Wolves are the only side in this little group here that have seen Europe in the last few years, apart from maybe if you had like Swansea or Cardiff in the FA Cup.
Yeah, I think you might be right, actually.
I think you are.
He's just getting it in now. We know where Wolves are.
Newcastle are the benchmark team to follow at the moment, and we're doing what Newcastle did. We're bottom of the league at Christmas. Our season starts on Boxing Day, and this time next year, me and Pete will be talking about Wolves and Newcastle going for top 4. I don't know why Pete bother turning up again, because Crystal Palace just make up the numbers, don't they?
Shots fired. Shots fired. He said, "You're just here to make up the numbers." D
Says the team that's sitting 20th in the league. Fair enough.
Mate, you've never won a title. You've never even won the championship. Your team's a joke. How many times I have to keep telling you? Your team is a joke. Joke. I'm going to keep talking over you.
Talking right now. Once again, the way you're talking right now, you acting like you ain't the worst team by stats in the league. Let's just be real. Stop talking about European football when right now championship football is closer to European football for you. Let's just be real. If we're being honest, you said let's be serious and honest. If we're being honest, we can talk about your next season, whether you're facing Millwall or whether you're facing any other team, or if you're going to say the Premier League. That's the serious talk. If you want to talk,
I mean, Pete, in all fairness, you started talking about rivals. D's just brought up Millwall, Crystal. He probably thinks Leyton Orient's a rival because their trophy cabinet's pretty similar, to be honest.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't.
You'll be facing.
It does matter, D. It does matter, D. It does matter. I'd rather have history and football heritage than just a crap football stadium in the middle of fucking nowhere that everyone hates.
All right, cool. Cool.
Just fold your club. Just join up with Leyton Orient or someone.
You just
wannabe side. Your team's never been a wannabe. You've never been able to even smell wannabe.
I'll be honest with you. I'll be totally honest with you. No one cares about Wolves. Like I don't.
Mate, no one cares about Palace. Mate, you're like.
No one says.
You're like Leyton Orient and Acid.
Doing this. Like no one does, bro. No one does. Like there isn't anything about Wolves to care about, bro. You can talk rubbish about Palace all you like, but the reality is Wolves are sitting 20th in the Premier League. We've smoked you lot all these times.
You're 9 points in front of us. You're 9 points.
Trust me, maybe you might beat someone else on this panel, but we've had our easiest games of the season against you. We've smoked you last season, smoked you this season. We're sitting higher than you in the league. So if you want to talk to someone else, you might talk to, I don't know, maybe you beat Newcastle, if you beat Leicester or Villa. Fair enough, but you can't talk to me.
You're below Brentford.
And we're sitting higher.
You're below Brentford. You've won less trophies than Bury.
Okay, bro.
Bury don't even exist anymore.
Cool. All right, cool. All you talk about trophies, but this season, last season, easiest games. I'm not even saying this because you're getting on.
We don't need a referee, Lisa. We need Crystal Palace to go and play like NFL or something because this is football chat.
I don't know why you're so upset about Crystal Palace. Like Crystal Palace has done anything to Wolves. We don't care about
because I can just put 50p in your back and just let you run.
Yeah, we don't care about Wolves. I'll be real. I don't know why, as a Wolves fan, you care so much about Palace.
I want to get your opinion, D. I want to get your opinions on Villa before we move on, because obviously Villa have got their new manager. You know, from your perspective, I'll drop the league back up again. You know, to be fair, you're a point ahead of them. They're in and around you. You know, do you see them? Do you see Villa as a viable option for Europe? The way they're playing right now,
100%. Look, when you look at the league table there and what Villa are doing recently, Villa already had the players under Steven Gerrard. They just wasn't flourishing. Like we know that Villa's got quality players, but the thing is about this season is even when you look at between 6th and 10th or 11th, it's only 3 points. It's a crazy tight season, and you see everyone beating everyone apart from Wolves, who are beating no one. But it is up in that bracket. You know, we're people are actually doing well. So I think Villa are serious contenders, and I assume that they'll strengthen in January. But they got Emery, and Emery at Arsenal, people laugh about it, but he actually done a decent job considering that what they had. Arteta came in and struggled to put the team where Emery was until recently. I think they've got a quality manager. They've got a manager who has won European trophies, and a manager that knows about Europe, and he has a bit of experience in the Premier League. I think it'll be foolish to not consider Villa to be in and around there at this point. Maybe as the games go on, I guess they've only played a few games under Emery, and maybe we might see a bit bigger picture. Maybe their weaknesses might be exploited a bit more. They might not be as great as they've been so far, but I think they should be in the conversation. Let's just say that. I think Villa should be in the conversation based on the manager and the players that they've got.
No, I think that's a very fair reflection for a team that actually is. You're above them at the moment, albeit by a point, but you're above them. So I think that's quite a fair reflection. But you made a really good point, actually, and I'll come back to Rich really quickly on this before we move on to Ash. Is that D made a point and said, you know, you've got a European manager that's won trophies on the European level, and he also talked about improving the squad in January. Is there money available to improve the squad in January? And do you see yourself seriously going into the market and making some changes?
Yeah, I think he will. Whether he raids Villarreal for a couple of players, I don't know. But there's been rumours of like Pau Torres, one or two others coming in. Nicholas Jackson, who's Senegal international, I believe. So yeah, there's been one or two. But yeah, there's certainly funds available. I mean, like we've got, is it the 5th richest owners or something in the Premier League? So there's certainly money available. We just need physicality and strength in our team. Like that's what we need. Like a strong target man up front to, whether that be as a plan A or a plan B, we need that, and then we need some more pace in the side. Obviously, Leon Bailey's last couple of games has done really, really well. He's starting to show what he's all about, but I think we need more threat in behind. But yeah, certainly a big, strong target man as these, with his Palace side, they're very, very good physical side, and the Premier League is going that way more and more at the moment. So we just need to compete, because sometimes our midfield just is nowhere near good enough.
Ash, your opinions on Villa? Look, they're sitting. Go on.
I think you've got to be taking them seriously now. I mean, I know it's been a few games since Emery's come in, and you can always have the sort of honeymoon period with a manager, but Emery's proved time and time again at clubs that he's got quality and class, and he always brings his own style into teams. I think he will have some money to play with in January, and he'll get a few signings that suit his style of play, and you've got to take them seriously now. It's not a team I'm looking forward to playing with the momentum that they seem to be having at the minute. So, yeah, I think Villa have definitely got to be in the conversation. The next 3 or 4 games could be very important for them in terms of how serious we take the charge for Europe. All of them teams around that area, including ourselves, I think we can bracket like that. But, yeah, they're definitely in a better position than they were with Gerrard. That's for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Like I say, it is really tight in that league at this moment. And look, D, I'll come to you from a Palace point of view. We've spoken before, and you've said you've kind of had a little bit of an indifferent start to the season, like some good results, some not so good. But I would just flick the league up again, sitting at 11th place, 19 points, 5 wins, 4 draws, 5 defeats. Is that where you kind of seen yourself at this stage in the season? And again, I'll ask you the question straight off the bat. Do you see yourself with only what are you, 3 points off Liverpool in 6th place?
It's mental. Yeah.
It's a mental league.
I think it's crazy because as Palace fans, we know that we're missing 2 key positions. The midfield, we still haven't replaced Conor Gallagher, which we expect to be replaced in January window because it didn't happen in summer. And you can argue about right back. It's been a bit inconsistent. But with Palace this season, as I said, there's 2 positions that's missing and a bit depth elsewhere as well that we need. So we haven't got our full squad. Our away form is what's kept us back. As we've seen, we go beat, for example, teams at home. And then when we go away from home, it's not just about the fact of losing. We just don't perform. Like, we had 0 shots on target, 0 shots against Nottingham Forest. Well, we had a shot, Bizarre missed a penalty. But it doesn't make any sense when Forest, I know they've improved, but they're still they're not a great side. They are a better side than they were before. But having 0 shots on target against one of the worst defenses in the league makes no sense. So with Palace, I feel like this break has come at a brilliant time because we need to evaluate our away tactics compared to home. At home, it's perfect. It works. That's fine. But away from home, it is way too different from how we play at home. That is worrying. It's worrying in terms of it's holding us back. And trust me, we should have and could have picked up more points if it wasn't for our away form. I mean, sitting third, that's what I'm saying is actually very surprising to see us 3 points off Liverpool of 6th because all season long we've struggled away from home. And the fact that we're still in that position, in and around, and we're closing on January where we can buy players, where we've had this break now, we can work on our away form and have a little mini preseason because our preseason was a bit disrupted. I think we're in a very good position. I think Vieira's doing a very good job of what he's got in terms of the players. Of course, tactically, I think he said it himself. We have to look at it away from home. But once we do sign 1 or 2 players as well, I feel like Palace will improve naturally within that group.
I've got a question for you. Obviously, you've talked about quite positively Patrick Vieira and the job that he's done since he's been at Palace. He's done a good job for you. He's built a number of players up. He's brought some smart buys. But do you think he's the manager to take you to Europe? Is he good enough? Is he proven enough that he can try and break that mold potentially?
Well, when you talk about proven, no, he isn't proven as a manager at the top level to take a team into Europe. Well, he was decent at Nice and then he kind of collapsed there. But I think he is. I really do. From what I've seen in the past 2 seasons, not just Patrick Vieira, it's the whole coaching staff. And you can see everyone's role as part of that team. And maybe for Newcastle is pretty much the same. You know why it's working well. It's not just the players. It's not just a manager. It's the whole backroom staff. So with Vieira, yes, I do believe it. But we haven't backed him in this window. And that's why we're in the position we're in right now, which is not a bad position because we're still 3 points off 6th. But we should have done better. We could have done better. But if he was backed, that wasn't the case. However, when he does get backed, and it depends on what happens next summer because we don't know what's happening with Zaha, I think he could be the next manager. I don't know who else could really take the role. I feel like he's fitted in the role. He understands the club. He plays positive football. And so far, it has worked. Last year, FA Cup semi-final. This year, we will see what happens in terms of where we are in the league or so. But we're only 3 points off the league table. It was frustrating last game. But when you look at the league table as a whole, where we sit, it's not a bad position at all.
No, I would agree. You just mentioned Zaha there. There's a lot of talk, and people are mentioning it in the chat as well, saying that he could leave in January, and there's a chance he could leave in January. Is there a genuine feel within the Palace fans that he leaves in January? And if he does, where does that leave you guys? Because he is kind of the talisman of the team, isn't he?
He's not leaving in January. If he does leave, it'll be in the summer. He's not leaving in January. There's no way we let him go. We reached a point where we gambled in terms of he wanted to leave in the past. He's playing his best football right now under Vieira. He's enjoying Patrick Vieira. You can see the relationship between the two of them is great. So there's still a chance that he signs. I get that he hasn't signed a new contract and he hasn't been official, but Palace are in talks with Zaha, and Zaha has reached a point where I know we're not in European football, but if he does join a European side, there's the chance that he could easily end up on a bench as well, because majority of these European sides, they've got quality and depth. And depth is the key word here. If Zaha doesn't have a good game or two, you know how it works in football. You can be on a bench, and then next thing you know, he's not playing football. So I think he's got a big decision to make. He's turning 30. I think he's actually turned 30, and he's at the peak of his career. So for me, he's not leaving in January, but whether he signs a new contract or not, honestly, as Palace fans, we don't know. Even journalists, they don't know what is exactly where his mind frame's at. But inside of me, I think he stays. I think he stays if we perform as we are. He knows the strengths of this Palace side. He knows that we haven't reached our full potential yet. And for me, he's settled in London. His family's in South London, and for him to move to another side, I don't know what side in the Premier League he goes to. If he was to leave, maybe they're talking about Arsenal. Maybe if Arsenal are serious about it, then that could happen. But I'm not too sure if they are. But yeah, if it's not a London side, I'm not too sure if he moves abroad to Italy or Germany at this stage. His family's settled, and he's forget about his little ones and his kids and stuff. But his whole family's here. He's grew up in South London, and it seemed like he's at that age at 30 doesn't really want to resettle at another country. I'm not too sure.
Nah, it's an interesting talking point.
Yeah.
Look, Rich, do you think that Palace are going to keep Zaha, and do you think they are viable in their quest for European football, or do you think it would be maybe what's considered like a normal Palace season, that they start well and maybe sort of drop off as the season goes on?
I think on the Zaha situation, weirdly, it was linked with Aston Villa the last couple of weeks. I mean, I'd love to have him. He's like the Robbie Savage. He's like the new Robbie Savage of the Premier League, isn't he? Like everyone loves to hate him, like, but you'd love him in your team, like. So he's a bit like that, isn't he? But obviously a much better player. So yeah, I'd love him at Villa, but I don't think that'll happen. I think, I think like Dee says, I think he stays at Palace, and possibly even signs a new deal. Like, it's within players' interest now to keep their options open, isn't it? So, that kind of threat, I suppose, in terms of losing a player for nothing. It's teams now are more, clubs are more than willing to look at doing that, and players will kind of leave it right to the last minute to see who comes in for them. So I don't think that's an issue. In terms of Palace, they're just such a funny side, because every time I watch them at home, I think bloody hell, they're a hell of a side. Like, they're fast, skillful, physical, like just swarm teams, just all out attack. It must be like a great team to watch at home. But then away from home, like Dee said, they just changed. That they're not, don't seem to play in that same manner. And I don't know why, because you would just think, players like Eze, players like Zaha, like I've just said, just running at teams would just be frightening for any team, whether they're at home or away. So it just seems a little bit strange that maybe Vieira's kind of almost tinkering with it too much. It's like, just if it's not broke, don't fix it. Just, you'll win more games than not if you continue playing like that. So maybe if they can, like, play in that vein, particularly away from home, they've got an opportunity to push for Europe. I always worry about their centre forwards, though. I just don't know if they score enough goals in that centre forward position. That's my only thing. And then if one of their centre backs gets injured, there's maybe an issue there. But other than that, I think they've got a good side.
Interesting. Ash, you guys would have played in this season. I think it was 0-0 at the King Power. Were you impressed with Palace? Do you see them as a potential European rival to you guys? Do you see them even? Do you see them fighting in the top half of the table?
Top half of the table, definitely. But just touching on what like Rich said, I just think they're a complete different team away from home than they are at home. I feel like when they come to our ground, we weren't the best ourselves, and I thought we were still slightly the better team. Palace had no teeth that day, I don't think.
You deserved the win. We were lucky to get a point. We only had one shot. That's what I'm saying. And at that point, we were talking about Danny Ward, and he actually managed to keep a clean sheet in that game. I think we converted Danny Ward to now how many? I think he's kept the most clean sheets in the Premier League. I think it all started at Palace, and then the rest is history.
He's done. That's it, and like he's been brilliant since then. But in terms of Palace, why can't they? I think Vieira's got a good system going on there. The players seem to want to play for him, and I think the Palace fans are happy. Obviously, it's fresh now, with a good younger manager in there, and he's trying something new. So why can't they push on and get a top half finish if they keep the home form up?
Yeah, we definitely show elements of progress. Look, and little Dan, I'll come back to you. I'll come back to you with your thoughts on Palace. And listen. Now you've listened to Dee from a Palace perspective. You've listened to Richie and Ash. Like, have you changed your thoughts? Now you've seen the table. You've seen where they're at. What they 3 points off sixth place, which is where Liverpool are at right now. Have you changed your thoughts on there, or are you still adamant that there's going to be no progress from Palace and they should be looking the other way?
Zero progress. It's classic Palace. Another season, 10th to 14th. I'm not even trying to harass D. This is Crystal Palace, the Crystal Palace we all know. Until that club massively invests, they're never going to be nothing that apart from making up the numbers in the Premier League. Patrick Vieira could be an exceptional coach, but if they don't back him, it's going to be another season mid-table. There's nothing wrong with that, but I just want something more from a club. I'd rather go down, win the championship, come back, get relegated, than just be middle of the road for season upon season.
What do you think about that, Dee? Would you agree with that? Or?
I think that's a comment from someone who doesn't know what Palace have done in terms of business, who hasn't watched Palace. Because when you see Palace last season, we signed about 7-8 players. It's not the same old Palace because we signed younger players. We started a whole new process under Patrick Vieira. And if you don't see that, then you don't see that. I'm not the one to, that's everyone's got their own opinions. But as Palace fans, we know that what we started, and we know that we haven't got the wealth to be competing in European football after 2 seasons under Patrick Vieira, because we need a few more windows. We haven't got that financial power. But we know what we've done. We know what we're doing. It's all part of the process. We've even signed players this summer, like Decore, for example, a CDM number 6, who's been decent for us and has been influential. We'll make baby steps forward. But if you haven't seen any progress from Palace, then that's on you, innit? But that's not true.
You can't make baby steps in this league, D. This is an episode about breaking into Europe. Everyone keeps on talking about, them only 3 points off Liverpool, but it's too big a gap. This is the problem that Wolves have had, Villa have had, Leicester had it similar before that. Unless you massively invest in your club, you're not going to break into these European spots.
So have Leicester invested massively in their club this summer?
Leicester in the bottom half, aren't they?
Yeah, but all right. So, but do you think Leicester can finish in European spots? Because that's what we've been talking about all show.
But I don't think anyone in this episode, apart from Newcastle, can finish in the European spots.
Well, that's on. Yeah, I think I don't know if Rich, but
pop the league up again, Pete. Let's just try and be realistic for 10 seconds, because all we've done the last 20 minutes is talk about how possible that Palace might finish in the European positions.
There's Palace. Palace are in their position.
Where's Wolves? The league table, we need to
I'm not here to talk about Wolves getting into Europe, D. I'm here just for the vibes and just to harass you for 10 minutes, thinking you're going to get Europe.
I know what. By the way, no one said that. Did I say we're getting into Europe? I just said we're 3 points off 6th.
You just imply that I'm here to talk about Wolves getting into Europe.
No, but I'm just saying, you're just been hating on Palace for a very long time. I don't know why. I don't know what Palace have done to you, but you just said that Palace better get relegated and win the championship, where you clearly haven't watched Palace. You clearly don't know what players we've signed.
No, I have clearly watched Palace because I've set it up over episodes, D. When we've played you probably the last 2 or 3 seasons, and you've just done us every game, because you've just got so much more physicality in the midfield than what Wolves have.
Yeah, and that's from the new players. It's not about physical. It's from the new players. It's not the same Palace that we were 3 years ago under Roy Hodgson. We've signed new players. And
when we played you at Sellers Park the other week, you didn't beat us by being over physical. You beat us because we couldn't score. We should have been 3-0 up in the first half.
Yeah, and you wasn't. That's the thing.
Okay, so look, the one thing I wanted to show you is on the screen.
Oh, okay.
It is the point where you've got Liverpool on 22 points in 6th place, but actually, you look at that league and it could change so quickly, which is why this is the reason why so many teams have been opened out. This is why we have the likes of Rich and the likes of Ash and D. And then we've got Emilio. Welcome to the show. I'm glad you could join us from a Fulham perspective, because this is why we have these discussions. Because actually, if you look at it, it doesn't take a couple of wins for you to be catapulted up the table, and then you're in a completely different discussion from that point of view.
I think the loss column's pretty telling, because Liverpool have lost 4 games out of the first 14. Chelsea have lost 5 games, Fulham 6, Villa 7, Leicester 8, and then even they're still in touch. And I think that just shows that every team can beat everyone, and that's why it's so topsy-turvy. Now, whether it kind of levels out, as the season goes on, we'll know more as after the World Cup break. Obviously, with players that come back, it could be that Liverpool and Chelsea go on a mad run, and then it's all like business as usual. But I guess it's like a situation where you guys in particular, Newcastle, but us, Villa, Palace, maybe Leicester as well, maybe need to make hay while the sun shines. And I guess what Dan's saying is, like, if we're not backed in the window, then you miss that opportunity. Like Villa missed that opportunity in lockdown when we were like 6th or something with obviously Grealish flying and stuff, and we just didn't back the manager at the time. You've got to take the opportunity when you can. And it'd be the same with you,
Let's
like
get
with
your
Newcastle, like to get in the top 4.
What's that?
Pop up to you in 3rd a minute, Pete. Let's get your heart racing for a second.
Go on then.
You're hold on. You're only 11 points in front of Palace. We're 9 behind Palace. So what's more likely to happen this season? Palace finish above Newcastle or what's finish above Palace?
Oh,
I
it's
don't
an
know why
interesting
he's so
question.
obsessed with us. I'll be real. I genuinely don't know why he's so
Because
obsessed with us.
because you're being disparaging about my club that you can't even like
I haven't said
be in
anything
our
about your
shadow
club. You
because
started
you've
this.
never
To
won
put context
anything.
into it, to put context into it, I've been talking about. I was talking to West Ham. I was talking to Brighton. They're way more relevant than Wolves to me, anyways. Personally, for me, I was talking to them, and you got upset over Palace for I don't know what reason. I don't know what Palace have done to apart from beat Wolves consistently. I don't know what Palace have actually done to Wolves for you to care so much about us. We genuinely like, bro, stop forcing this rivalry between Palace and we don't care. Like, we don't care about Wolves. You might finish above us, even if you
I've
do
got
finish
to at the
above us.
moment. I've got to force this rivalry, D.
If you do finish above us,
I've got to force this rivalry.
That's fine.
Really, because you're in the bottom half. Villa have won a European Cup. Leicester have won a Premier League. And Newcastle are third. So you're the only like in my links at the moment. I'm just trying to be realistic to my position. If you want to talk history,
okay. All right, cool. You're being realistic when you're talking about
Fulham are basically just a rich palace. But the Fulham have actually won trophies, so
all right, cool. Fair enough.
Just
say that you don't want football.
Trophies are Berry.
It's cool. It's cool.
We've got Mike Dean in the house for coming to join the show with his red card in place. Great to have you on, Mike Dean, whoever you are. But look, it's an interesting chat about Palace, and I think regardless of what we think, I think it's an interesting perspective to look at. In that, from the Newcastle to Palace is 11 points, Wolves to Palace it's 9, and it's not necessarily about the Wolves or Palace. I think we'll come on to you next, little Dan, in that ultimately, we're talking about Europe, and you're currently at the bottom of the league right now. But as you've said, 9 points, 3 wins in a row could completely change things very, very quickly. Are you of the mindset where you're thinking about that in terms of how things could change very, very quickly, or are you of the mindset? We've been laughing and joking on chat separately as a group, and you were saying about you just want to be in the Championship, but you just want to kind of get it over and done with. Are you of that mindset, or do you genuinely think you can get out of it?
No. The optimism is fully back now. I can only imagine it's similar to what Rich is feeling at the moment. We've both brought in top European pedigree coaches, and I just think Wolves and their owners can't afford for us to get relegated, so they're going to back Lopetegui in the January transfer window, and that'll just be enough to keep us up. And then we're looking at next summer to properly stamp his authority on the club and hopefully push on to hopefully European places next. There's that many clubs can fight for those top 11 places, and then obviously you've got the bottom 12, Crystal Palace and the rest.
No, I think that's fair. But you on the cusp of getting a new manager, or you got a new manager?
Yeah, Julian Lopetegui was appointed just before the World Cup break. He was appointed the day of the Arsenal fixture. His first fixture will be Gillingham at home in the 4th round of the Carabao Cup. For me personally, my season now is Wolves to stay up and hopefully go on to win the Carabao Cup, because Gillingham at home in the 4th round, then you're in the sort of last 16, and as far as I'm concerned, you avoid Man City in the Carabao Cup. It's anyone's to get to Wembley in the Carabao Cup.
Yeah, I think you're right. Fair play. And look, Ash, I'll come to you. The Midlands rivals get to have their say now on Wolves, and you get to say your perspectives on all things Wolverhampton. So, look, what are your thoughts on Wolves? Obviously, it's not looking likely that they're going to get European football, but obviously, Little Dan was part of the initial discussion in the summer. From a Leicester point of view, are you worried about them? In your potential quest for Europe, do you think they're even going to get out the relegation battle, being bottom of the league?
I think sort of like what Dan says, their main focus now is probably to just achieve safety and get a good cup run in. in terms of Europe, just being realistic, not this season, no. But there's no reason why this new manager can't build something that could work over the next few years. Obviously, this is the reason why we get new managers in, for progress, and he's got a project now. But this season, no, I wouldn't say Wolves would be pushing for Europe this season. I'm sure Dan himself would completely agree with that this year. It's just about staying up and playing some good football and getting the fans back behind the team this year.
Yeah, look, Rich, I'll come to you. It's not likely, and Dan's just said that they're not going to get European football. But do you think they're going to be the team that are just going to be absolute bastards and just with their new manager at the helm go and beat teams and screw other teams' opportunities of potentially getting Europe by picking up decent results in the second part of the season?
Well, Villa have got them on 4th of January, I think. So just after the break from the World Cup. So that'll be an interesting game. Obviously, just said there, they've got a top manager in, a top coach in. So you'd think that will have an effect. I don't think the quality of the football necessarily has ever been in question with Wolves. Like every time I see Wolves play, they create some chances. They play some. They've got a really good shape. They play some good one-touch football, and they always seem to get behind teams, but they just can't score. And I think when you're at the bottom of the table, if you can't score goals, it's very, very difficult to get yourself out of trouble. So, and they didn't score many goals. They've not been renowned as great goal scorers in the even when they've finished really high up in the league. They've based it on having a really, really good defense. So, that's the difficulty where I'm seeing with Wolves. If Lopetegui can get a good striker in, or can really get can keep Jimenez fit and get a real tune out of him, then they've got a chance. But apart from that, it's going to be difficult because Forest, for all their faults, they score goals. One or two other teams down there, they score goals, and that's what's going to win your football matches at the end of the day.
Yeah, interesting. Emilio, great to have you on. You joined the chat slightly late. Glad that you were able to make it. We're just talking about Wolves right now, and we'll come on to your team later because that's an interesting conversation in itself. But look, Wolves are down there. Dan's been honest. He said, they're struggling right now, but they've got a new manager. I'm not going to ask you whether they're going to get Europe because I think we've all made the point in that we don't think they will this season. But do you see them getting out of the relegation battle? Because I don't think Little Dan has too much confidence in that.
Yeah, from my perspective, I'm hoping the Wolves continue to lose. This means one less team that could get relegated, out of the three. But look, that bottom 10, bottom 12, we're all going to keep playing each other this season, home or away. There's going to be a lot of 6-pointers. We're looking with the dizzy heights of 7th, but that can change. We lose the next 2 or 3 games after the World Cup, we'll be drawn into the bottom 4, bottom 5. Win 2 of those next 3 or 4 games, then dare I say, we can even attempt to get into Europe. As far as I'm concerned, 17th place was always my priority, and I haven't changed that view. We're playing good football. We're exciting. We've only been battered by one team, Pete. That was Newcastle. The other games, we've given everyone a run for their money, and with a bit more luck or maybe a bit more quality up front without Mitrovic when he's not played, we've missed him in the last couple of games. Man City away, we lost to a last second penalty, which was dubious. And Man United, last kick of the game, we lost at home. Arguably, that's 2 more points on the board that we've thrown away. And Wolves away, we missed a penalty. Mitrovic late on, that could have been another 2 points. So we've not nicked any points, but we've dropped points at crucial stages. So for me, being 7th, 19 points is a very good return. Wolves, of course, I think they can get out of it. Any of those bottom teams can get out of it. They're all beating each other. Forests were dead and buried a month ago. Now they're giving themselves a chance to stay up. Villa, new manager, they've found some form. Leicester City, we're talking about Brendan Rodgers quit, getting sacked in October. Look, now you're going through this unbeaten run and scoring goals and very competitive. So, look, at that bottom 10, Brighton, I think we were talking about. When we talk about Brighton, not long ago, being top of the table at the beginning of the season, now Fulham are literally in touch and distance with them. So goalposts change very, very quickly. So I wouldn't take much into the current position. I think the World Cup break will probably do Wolves a favour. it might be the Leicester informed teams like Leicester and Fulham that might suffer from that if we don't get back onto winning ways in end of December. So it's all up for grabs as far as I'm concerned. Any team can stay up or go down as far as I'm concerned. Those bottom 10, even Brighton are potentially at risk of going down, and so are Palace, Fulham, Villa, and everyone on this call.
Talking of Brighton, Maz was going to come and join us tonight, but I think he saw that that D was on and thought he didn't want the argument. He didn't want it tonight. But
there's nothing to even argue about. There's nothing to even argue about. In all honesty, with Brighton, it still stands. I mean, what's the teams they've beaten so far? They've beaten Chelsea and who else was it they beat? I forgot. But yeah, I already said it. Maybe in the future there might be a decent team, but I feel like they're going to slowly come down. I think Emilio made a very good point. You know, Brighton were 4th, and now they're only 2 points or 19. Yeah, they're like 2 points from 10th. But I'm not saying they won't have a successful season, but I'm just saying that I said that they'll come down to earth. I don't think they'll be in European spots personally.
Yeah, look, I mean, they are 7th in positions wise. It looks good for them, but like you just said,
they started very good to the season, though, Pete. Started very good to the season, and then when since Potter's left, of course they've had some hard games. I get that, but even against Villa, I believe Villa played them last, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Villa managed to get the old Brighton. I would say under Potter would have potentially caused a bit more damage. And I know Villa towards the end, Brighton were kind of pressuring them, but I think Brighton, it's not one game. It's not just the fact that a new manager's coming in. The new manager said that he wants to keep the fundamentals the same under Graham Potter, but you're not Graham Potter. And I feel like slowly as time goes on, he will start losing it. You know, he has to adapt to the next game now. He hasn't worked against Villa. So slowly, it will start changing. And that's why I don't believe that Brighton will be the same team that they were under Graham Potter.
No, definitely. It's an interesting one. Look, we'll get Maz on again so we can fight his corner, no doubt, later on in the season. We'll get him back. But look, D, just while we're on with you, we'll give you an opportunity to have your say on Wolves before we switch over to another club. So look, this is your opportunity to respond to what little Dan said about Palace. So like, from your perspective, Wolves, not necessarily can they get Europe, because I think we've all agreed that they're not necessarily in the running for that. But are you with Dan in that they might struggle to get out of the relegation zone, or do you think with a new manager and that bounce that they could have, a bit of a run where they can save themselves?
No, they can stay up. They've got very good players in that team. As Rich said, they've been struggling to score. But then again, it's different between Wolves and Villa, because with Emery, we've seen him in the Premier League. We've seen him and what he's done with Arsenal, and it wasn't awful. Like they still play some decent football. With their new manager, it's entering a new territory. Now, of course, certain managers suit certain leagues better because of the physicality element and the tactical side of things. So the manager has done it at a high level, and he has managed some big clubs as well. So in that aspect, they've got big players in terms of like Ruben Neves and the other type of players that they've got, and they've also got a big manager. So I feel like they could easily stay up. But then again, would the new manager live up to the hype? There's that question. They're struggling to score goals. The only way they get out of it, or two ways, they'd sign a very good striker, or the patterns of play just have to improve. And maybe that new manager brings that patterns of play where they start scoring goals even without signing a new striker. So I'm not too with Wolves is a territory that I'm not too sure about. But right now, when you look at the squad and the manager, they should be able to try and stay up at the very least.
Sound fair, Dan?
Yep, very fair. It all depends on goals. Goals win games at the end of the day. Everyone knows we've been struggling for goals. It's not just this season. Last season under Bruno Lage, since Raul Jimenez had that horrific head injury, we've just been awfully in the attacking third. We've had to sort of cherry pick Diego Costa out of nowhere to try and salvage the first half of the season, which hasn't gone well. But like I said, you look at Lopetegui's CV. He hasn't taken this job on without some assurances he's going to get back to the January window. And that's the only thing I can be optimistic at the moment about.
No, I think that's fair. It's one of them where we'll have to keep watching. We'll see what the manager actually does, because, like you said, he's not had an opportunity to get the players on the pitch to see what they're all about under his stewardship. So let's see how things turn from Boxing Day onwards with regards to Wolves. Obviously, you said you've got Gillingham first, but let's see how he gets on in the Premier League moving forward. Just before we come to Ash about Leicester's perspective this season, which is chopped and changed very quickly. So I want to get Ash's views on this. Look, we're all looking for new players in January. We're all looking to strengthen. Anyone take this guy?
Doesn't run enough.
Nah.
No chance.
Nah.
1,000,000%. If you wouldn't check this man in your team, you do not know football.
He's amazing. He's an amazing footballer. He's unreal. But
Yeah.
If you create that guy chances, he will score goals. He scored 18 in the league for Manchester United last season. If your team does not need an 18 league goal striker, I don't know. You should have won the league by now.
Yeah, well, look.
From a numbers point of view, I can't argue with you. It's just what he does to dressing rooms. That's the issue.
But does he though?
It's propaganda. It's just propaganda.
He's done it at Man United. He has created a little bit of ruckus. He's handled this situation wrong, completely wrong. And I'm not just talking about the summer and this season. You could see it happening last season with the things that he was doing and the way he was behaving. So you could see what was happening. But did he really do it at Juventus and Real Madrid?
He'd be worse. He'd be worse at a worse club. That's the problem. He's like we have a situation with Steven Gerrard where the words were that he's such a winner and he's such a phenomenal footballer that when sometimes in management, when players can't necessarily do what you want them to do or how you would have done it, you can't translate that to make them better. And I think the problem with Ronaldo is that team in the early when he was at United before was so good. Like there were so many top players there. When that's not happening like it is with this side, with this edition of Man United, he just can't handle it. So, imagine him in the Villa side where the quality of passing is even worse, or a Wolves side, he gets so frustrated that it would just ruin the whole emphasis of the club.
Yeah, look, Lisa's just put a comment in there that this has been put up on the screen from a Newcastle perspective. One of our mods, Lisa, she put, "I would not take Ronaldo. He's not a team player, and we have a no dickheads policy." Now, the reason why we know we have a no dickheads policy at Newcastle because we have a Northeast journalist, Jordan Cronin, that comes on from Newcastle World. He comes on for a show every couple of weeks, and it's well known within the Northeast press that there is in fact a no dickheads policy, and it's said as that at Newcastle under Eddie Howe. And
that's from the New Zealand All Blacks. That's the ethos from that's copied from the New Zealand All Blacks. Yeah.
Oh,
it's mad though. It's mad what's happened. Like we're talking about arguably one of the greatest players of all time, and he's just ruining his legacy. Well, it's just going out sad. I just feel like it's going out sad right now. When you're looking at, for example, Messi. I know it's sad they lost to Saudi Arabia, Argentina, but Messi was still like he was doing his thing in league football before in the build up to it. But Ronaldo, it's always been drama. Like it's been drama. There's been interviews here and there, and even like Ronaldo, even if he does join his side. He's turning 38 in February. So how long can he do it at this top level for? I know he scored goals last season and I believe he's only got a goal this season. But in all honesty, it might sound wild, but for Palace, yeah, you take it for 6 months or so, but then you want someone long term. Like you want to build for the future. I don't know about the rest of the clubs, but it doesn't make sense, and I think you'll join a big club anyway. So I think you'll join a big club.
Yeah.
There's no way he joins one of our clubs. Maybe Newcastle could have potentially attracted him, but why would Newcastle want him? They've got something good going on. And he's coming towards the end of his career right now.
Yeah.
And the way he's done this interviews and all of that, I understand it to a certain extent because he also made some very good points in the interview. But I think it kind of what's done to him is other clubs are looking at it and they're saying, all right, Ronaldo, no go. He's going to cause a problem. And I think he's just damaged his own reputation by it. And especially in the Premier League, I don't think it's going to help him. Maybe he goes abroad, maybe he goes Bayern Munich or any other club they're taking. But he ruined his reputation by that interview, and I don't think what's happened in the Premier League so far, even when he has played, he hasn't been that great. And this season and that interview, I think he has to be a club abroad. He can't be one of us.
Yeah, I personally don't think he comes back to England or after the World Cup. I think he'll go abroad somewhere, and I do think he'll get a potential Champions League team. I'd be surprised if he doesn't.
Yeah.
But from a Newcastle perspective, there's loads in the chat that always saying no chance. Don't want Cristiano Ronaldo. Newcastle fans have been like that for a while, just because of if you think about it, the work off the ball. Newcastle, like, that's our identity. We run for 90 minutes and we press high non-stop. Like, he doesn't fit into that. Would we take his goals? Of course. Like, I think most Newcastle fans would probably swap him for Chris Wood all day long, but would he start? Would he play for us in the way in which he wants to? Probably not. But he needs to be.
Do you know how funny that is? Sorry, Peter, to cut you off. Do you know how funny that is? The fact that you said Newcastle fans would take Ronaldo over Chris Wood pretty much shows where his career's at this point. When the fact that we're comparing Ronaldo to Chris Wood.
I'm sorry, you would take Ronaldo over Chris Wood.
Yeah.
Sorry.
The fact that is part of a conversation.
Yeah, that's true.
It shows how well Newcastle are doing.
The
fact that and it kind of shows when Ronaldo's at and how he's perceived by the general public in terms of how
it's a genuine conversation.
Money as well, isn't it? It's the money as well. It's like, I get what Dan's saying, 18 goals and all, but like, it's $500,000 a week. What does that say to, like, other players? The Ronaldo legacy is the Ronaldo legacy, but other players like turning up to that are like, well, hang on a minute, you're paying him, he's 38. I know he's the greatest player or whatever, but if you were playing that dressing room and you're on 100 grand a week, 80 grand a week, I know it's a lot of money, but then you're like, he's on 500 grand. Like, I'd be ringing my agent straight away, getting him knocking on the manager's door straight away.
Yeah.
Like,
you would, but there's
Callum
a reason
Wilson
why.
would be like, well, I want
bigger than just football,
400 grand.
innit? Like, I think with Ronaldo, what we're talking about now is just bigger than just the goals. And it's if you look at the full picture, his wages, in terms of his age, like, it's not a wild thing to say to not wanting to have Ronaldo on your side, in my personal opinion. I don't think it is for majority of these teams here. I know maybe Little Dan might take him at Wolves because it makes more sense because they're struggling to score goals. And you got Ronaldo there. So short term, who would you rather have? Diego Costa or Ronaldo? I'd rather have Ronaldo at this moment of time. But as I said, it could mess up dressing rooms in terms of his wages and all the other stuff that's involved. So for me, I wouldn't be surprised if lots of Premier League clubs said no.
Yeah. I'm convinced he doesn't come back to England. He'll go abroad. He'll probably get a Champions League team somewhere, and he'll play there for another year or a year and a half, and we'll see. But there's a reason why I said Ronaldo for Chris Wood as a swap, because, being honest, and it might sound crazy in itself, I don't think any Newcastle fan was swapping for Callum Wilson. I don't think any Newcastle fan was swapping for Alexander Isak, and he's only played 3 games for us. But we can see the quality in both players, and that's just the way in which Newcastle's evolved as a team. But look, regardless, I don't think he's coming back to England. He'll go somewhere else, but it was just one of those fun things to pick out. And there's been a lot of talk about our next team, so Leicester City. Ash, I'll come to you because Leicester are sitting, as we can see in that graph there, they're sitting in 13th place, but you haven't always been in that position. You've been fighting in the bottom 3 for the majority of the season, and it was looking very, very difficult at some point, at many points in the early part of the season. But you've got 17 points on the board. You are 3, 4, 5 points off Liverpool. 4 or 5 weeks ago, did you ever think you'd be that close to Liverpool, who are currently 6th in the table? And in addition to that, what do you think genuinely your European chances are? Do you think you've got enough to make the complete turnaround?
Absolutely. To be realistic with you, I think we've had too many losses already to push on for Europe. We all know we had a disastrous start to the season. 4 or 5 games ago, we were bottom of the table. Felt like we didn't have a goalkeeper in place. We were worried, genuinely worried what was going on at Leicester City. The form has turned around and we're starting to see stuff that we seen 2-3 years ago, like when Maddison was really, really firing, Tielemans, and we missed out on the last day twice. We bottled it on the last day twice to get in the top 4. But we've certainly got a good enough squad to push for Europa League. No, I'm not even going to talk about above 5th place for Leicester City this season. I'm being realistic. But I'd be happy with top 10. We've got a massive January coming up because there's so many rumours of so many of our players. And I think it all depends on that. If we can keep hold of the players this season, there's no reason we can't get in the top half. And if we really, really done well, we might snatch a Europa League or Conference League place. But we won't be getting Champions League football this season.
I got a question, if I can ask that, Pete, quickly to Ash. Okay. So how I see it from the outside, Ash, you know better. Leicester this summer, they struggled to bring in players, right? And they're saying it was to do with finances. Is it financial fair play? Was it that? So what was it? Sorry.
So basically, there is rumours of financial fair play, but also King Power is a duty-free company. And obviously, duty-free has been non-existent the last 3-4 years because of COVID. And I think the books had finally hit them in terms of how much damage that had done over the last couple of years.
Yeah. So when you talk about Leicester's form now, I think they're doing great. But are you slightly worried about in terms of how are we going to transition? Because as we all know, if you stay at the same level in the Premier League, you just naturally will fall down because you have to buy and bring in more players, whether that's 1 or 2. But then if you can't bring in players as it stands and you have to sell players like Maddison, would that be the worst thing in the world? Do you think you need a rebuild in a way? Because I'm just wondering, if you don't have the money, then you have to bring in money. And the way you do that is sell your highest assets, which is like Tielemans and Maddison. So are you slightly worried even going into the January window? And is there like more rumors about players still coming in? Have they found a solution to it? Yeah,
well, genuinely, I am worried because we all know what a car crash it could have been already. We let Fofana go for nearly 80 million. He was going to be our star up-and-coming centre-back. We'd just signed him for 4 years and then we let him go. And we only reinvested 15 million of that in a panic buy because we literally had nobody in the centre-back position. And if January comes and we start letting players like Tielemans and Maddison go this time of year, we really could be still in a relegation fight if we don't replace them with players that have already been scouted and scouted well. Now, that's always been one of Leicester City's strengths. The scouting department has been fantastic over the last 5 to 6 years. And I think it's shown again with the centre-back that we brought in Wild Face. He's been absolutely unreal since he's come in. But maybe we do need that clear out. You could be absolutely right. We could need some young, hungry kids that want to come in and just give it a go and play for the shirt. And, ultimately it's progression in football. There's teams like Manchester City, Liverpool, even Man United you still have to put in the category just for the size of the club, and Newcastle now that are going to always be able to cherry pick your players if they offer them a good enough contract, and if there's European football as a bait there. If these players are playing so well as a footballer, you want to be at them clubs. But like you say, with Leicester City, it could quite easily go stale because the last 4 or 5 years we've had so much happen. In the last 6-7 years, we've won the Premier League, we've won the FA Cup, we've been in the quarterfinals of the Champions League, we've been in the UEFA Cup, I think it's 3 times, and we got to the semi-finals of the Conference League. But it's quite easy to go down from there because the fans always are expecting big things and good things, and when seasons like this happen, they change on the players very easily, and that's when they all will go. Tielemans still wears the badge with pride, but I can see him going. I think he'll go before Maddison, and he thoroughly deserves his move wherever he goes, and I'll back him. And Maddison is just absolutely unreal. I think he's one of the best attacking midfielders in the league at the minute, and wherever he goes, it'll be lovely to watch him play football. But in terms to answer your question about Leicester, I think we could do do with a clear out and get some of the older heads moved on now and get some young kids in that really want to get the teeth into it.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I think it depends on the scouting. If the scouting's fine, then you'll be fine. But I think this is, as I don't want to be the party people, but as well as Leicester are doing right now, in the next month or so, things could still drastically change. If you do sell these players and don't bring in players that are at similar caliber or in terms of production levels, then it could still go sour. So I don't know. As a neutral looking at it, it's like Leicester are doing well, but what are they going to? I think this January window is bigger for Leicester than anyone else here in terms of like the future club. With Wolves, for example, they expect a big January window because maybe like a striker's needed, and I don't know about any other position. I know they need a striker, but for Leicester, like selling your 2 key players, that could get you in a real mess. But also, it could push you up the table as well. So I think they're in a territory which they haven't been in for a very long time. As you mentioned, you've been playing European football. You bottled the top 4. That was the big thing about Leicester, bottling the top 4. But now, the way you're sitting 15th, you could easily go 7th. I can see Leicester going 7th if they bring in players. But then you could also be in a relegation battle if you sell these players and don't bring in proper good recruitment in terms of.
I completely agree with you, D.
So I think it's very interesting.
We all know even what losing out of form Kasper Schmeichel done to Leicester City for the first 6-7 games of the season. We were absolutely all over the place, and that was Kasper Schmeichel, who everybody was saying, he's marking at his corners, he's no good anymore, his commanding of the box has got terrible. So we let him go, and we really, really suffered. So can you imagine what losing Tielemans and Maddison in the middle of that park could do to this team? It could be tragic, and you've just got to be realistic about it. It could happen if Maddison's injury sort of heals up in the World Cup and he goes on to have a splendid World Cup. There's going to be teams waiting to throw money at him. There's one in the north at the minute. They're waiting to get hold of James Maddison, and I think in the summer that realistically could happen. That could happen.
I'm just gonna jump in there because I wanted to ask you this question before we move to the other guys. Is that it's got tongues wagging because both Wilson and Maddison are at the World Cup and seeing these boys together. Is there conversations happening? Is there talks going on? Maddison's tweeting out because they're both commentary boys. And obviously in the World Cup, and I tweeted out the other day, I put, from commentary to the World Cup, potentially to Newcastle. Do you think that? Do you think those type of conversations are happening in the England camp? Do you think maybe Wilson and Trippier and Pope are kind of putting the word in about potentially Newcastle? Like Yano's Yano's one of our mods. He's the only Newcastle fan on the Loaded Bag NUFC channel that doesn't want Maddison. He doesn't want Maddison at the club. But I don't know. It feels like there's a growing anticipation that potentially Newcastle could come in with a bid in January and try and test the waters of Leicester. You've talked about with D about the potential of starting again and getting young, hungry, fresh players in. Is this the opportunity to do that? Now you're sitting in a more comfortable position, and relegation isn't a kind of a direct conversation right now.
As long as they've done the scouting and they've got players there that they are confident in instead of panic buys, then I think we could be okay. In terms of the conversations happening in the international camps, Pete, we all know it happens. Look how Harry Kane come back from the Euros. Come on. He really, really, really threw his toys out the pram. He wanted out, didn't he? And now 10, 12 months later, he's dedicated to Spurs again, and Spurs is his, heart and soul. So we all know what these international camps do when they all get talking with each other, because there's a lot of, in football, they make friends, don't they, in the international players whilst they're there. And I also think that's the reason that we've ended up with 4 Belgian players at Leicester City, because things like that have happened, But I think they'll test the waters. They're 100% going to test the waters in January, because why wouldn't they? They've got the finances to. They've got the carrot there at the minute of, if we carry on our form, you're going to be playing Champions League next year, and that's what all these players want to play in. Doesn't matter whether it's for Man City, Liverpool, or Newcastle. If it's Champions League football and your squad's firing and you've got finances behind you, why not?
No, I think that's a very fair point. Look, before we move on to Emilio with Fulham, do any of you boys, Rich, Emilio, Dan, do you have anything you want to kind of raise about Leicester and their chances for Europe? Is there anything you want to kind of mention before we move on?
I think with Leicester, it's a bit of a. I agree with everything that D said, really, as well as like I think it's a lesson in a little bit in giving managers a little bit of time to turn things around. I think as cringy as he is a little bit sometimes, Rodgers is a good manager, like very, very good manager, and I think to kind of give him that time to put things right, and you've seen like one or two players starting to find some form, like Ward in goal and the centre backs that you talked about. Like I think that's been testament to kind of keeping that going. I think the likes of Vardy been amazing over the years, and it's just trying to get the likes of Daka and one or two others like to up to that level, or at least competing at that level where they're consistent. But yeah, I think they probably are going to need. They're going to lose one or two of those players. It's just how they reinvest it. I can actually see them raiding like Forest for maybe like a Brennan Johnson, or one or two of their younger players or consistent players, and then maybe I don't know, maybe even like some of the one or two of the top Championship players. I don't know, but I can see that potentially happening at a team like Leicester, like trying to get some rough diamonds and bringing them through. But yeah, I think that their home form will always keep them sweet. It's just how much they can push on.
Yeah.
I think the point I mentioned earlier, I think still stands. Look, you get a good run together. Suddenly you go from bottom and you push up the table 10 places. Wolves can do that. There's no reason why Wolves can't suddenly win 3 games on a spin. We lose 3 or Palace lose 3. The tide will turn positively or negative really, really quickly. So I think all these bottom 10, 12 teams, nobody is safe as far as I'm concerned. They don't know what's going to happen with the World Cup, injuries, players being poached in January. If we have some of our players have good tournaments, who's to say other big clubs come and poach them? European clubs, Mitrovic, from our perspective, he's still got an injury, but we're heavily dependent on him to score goals. If he has a good World Cup and is injury free, what is he going to go in January? He won't, because insiders will say he loves the club and has no desire to leave. But you put a European Champions League club on the table, his agent's in his ear. Who's to say he won't leave at the end of the season? So again, the World Cup's good to see some of our players there, but it may have an adverse impact to some of the smaller clubs who, will be challenged to retain him if a big club comes in with a big fee. So those are the pros and cons, but things change very, very quickly. Let's not forget that. So let's all stay grounded and realistic as well.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Come on, Dan.
I think the big worry for Ash will be next season. I said before, Leicester absolutely panned us at Molineux, that Leicester had no worries about staying up this season because they've got enough goals in the team. You've already mentioned Maddison, Tielemans, Vardy, Daka. Harvey Barnes hasn't even hit form properly this season, and he will hit form at some point. He's that talented. But I think Rich might have mentioned about how they reinvest when those players leave. Tielemans is more likely to leave on a free at the end of the season, isn't he, Ash? So where's the reinvestment from that? It's how much money they get from Maddison, really. I think next season should be the worry for Ash, because how they reinvest the Maddison monies will be key to them. We've already mentioned that Brendan Rodgers is a good manager, but that team does need a big influx of new players and quality players.
Well, he said it himself, hasn't he? Like, he's not been backwards in coming forward about saying that. So we'll see whether they back him or not.
Yeah, definitely. Going to be an interesting watch, Leicester. Look, we have you guys next in the Premier League at King Power. You guys have been on a little bit of form, and I don't think it's going to be an easy game because of the fact that we're coming back from a World Cup. We don't know the state of our players coming back, the likes of Bruno, Trippier, Wilson, Shaw. I think we've only got 5 at the World Cup. So I think that Pope's the other one. It's going to be interesting to see how we come back and tackle you boys at the King Power. But I think that will be telling, and it will give us an idea of where we're going and where you guys are going as a club. But that Maddison deal, I just don't think is going away from a Newcastle perspective. We've already had 2 bids rejected. It's clear that we want him. I think Yana put in the chat earlier on about no dickheads policy. It is just before we go. Is Maddison considered that type of person? Does he have an attitude or a bad attitude? Do you ever see that from a Leicester perspective?
No, no quabbles in terms of James Maddison at Leicester. He plays well. He digs in, and all the players seem to love him. So I can't see where that comes from, to be honest. I think he's a young lad who's just trying to do the best he can as a football player. Yeah,
I've always had that mentality. I'm not seeing anything that suggests that he's a bad egg in any way, shape, or form. But it seems to be something that sticks with him with opposition fans. But we'll see.
This goes back to his Coventry and Norwich days. It was a bit of a dickhead back then. He did twerk for a move to Wolves when he was at Norwich at one point, and I know he's like similar to like Jack Grealish, they do like to go out. But apparently Maddison has properly changed his way since he's had his first child, Ash, which might go in hand in hand with what you know of him at Leicester. But I'm just hearing what I hear.
No, it makes sense.
Yeah, he seems very, very settled at the moment. Whenever he puts his Instagrams out, it always seems to be about his dog or something within his house, but he never seems to be anything about partying or anything like that. So Dan, I think that's a great point. Look, we'll move on to Fulham. So Emilio, you were late joining us, but this is an interesting one. Fulham 9th in the Premier League. Look, boys, I didn't expect this. I don't know whether you expected it, lads. Emilio, I don't know if you expected this, but 19 points, 15 games. You are only a few points off Liverpool in 6th place. Other than Brighton, I mean, Maz couldn't make it tonight, but other than Brighton, who are sitting in 7th place, you are up there, with a realistic chance of potentially disrupting if you continue your form. You're playing well. You look like you're playing good football. You're going toe to toe with a numerous amount of teams that you come up against. What is your opinions on Fulham and their chances of playing potentially or getting close to European football this season?
I think, like you said, I think many people gave us a chance to stay up this season. I think we were written off before the season even started. I was always realistic. 17th place was always my goal. Stay in the Premier League this time around. And, I think we have defied the critics. All this nonsense about Mitrovic not being able to score in the Premier League. Well, 2 years ago, he didn't score because he wasn't given any game time. So that's the reason why he didn't score, not because he can't score. So, we're playing to his strengths. He's in the World Cup. He's a threat. He's a bully. He's scoring goals. He makes it difficult for defence, and he invites other players to score goals. We are dependent on him, but then you look at all the players around him. The other players are scoring goals. So like Pereira, Paulinho, even central defensive midfielder, he's scoring goals. So we've got goals in this team. And I think the problem we have is if we can keep it tighter at the back and concede less, then there's less need to win games 2-1 or 3-2, which is what we've done this season. And when we haven't been able to score those goals, when we've gone a goal down or been behind, then we're struggling to win those games outright. But overall, every Fulham fan will have taken 19 points right before the World Cup. I think, 17th place, I've said, is my goal. Things can change very quickly. I'm being realistic here. That's why I want the players to come back from the World Cup. I'd rather they exit early, so they come back injury-free, ready to play Crystal Palace away on Boxing Day. I don't want any injuries carried over to the World Cup, to be honest, selfishly. But look, no one's given us a chance. We're going to invest in the January transfer window. There's going to be a few discrete signings that we need to make. But you said it, Pete. Only Newcastle have battered us. The other teams who've gone head to toe should have been in Liverpool first game of the season. Unlucky to lose away to Arsenal last minute. The last 2 Manchester games should have got draws from those. So look, arguably speaking, we should have 25, 26 points. And that's without, like I said earlier, without nicking a point or a win. All the games we have won, we've deserved to win, and the draws have been deserved as well. We're not, you're lucky to grab a draw there, or you didn't deserve a win there. We've actually deserved to be 19 points on the board, if not more. The question is, can we sustain it? That's the problem. Injuries, winter, World Cup. It could cause a problem. Can we get to Europe? I don't see why not. If we're being optimistic and then why not? At the end of the day, we can beat the likes of Chelsea at home. We can beat Arsenal at home. We've got still to play these big teams at home, and we've competed well away from Cottage. But again, let's be realistic. 38 points is what I'm looking for. Double the points tally, then I can start to breathe and relax. Would a cup run be nice in the January? Probably, but what's more important, cup run or survival? I think it goes without saying survival is more important for the club. So we're a small club, deserve to be where we are, but most fans are realistic. Premier League is a priority, and if it means Villa, Wolves, Palace keep losing games, good for Fulham. It means there's more chance for us to stay up. But it's all we can do is beat the teams around us, which is what we've been doing this season. I think 2 years ago, I think we were able to beat the likes of Liverpool, Anfield, Leicester. I think we won away to Leicester, Everton. We won away from home, but we weren't beating the teams around us, which is why we went down. This year, it's a different story. We're competitive. We're beating the teams around us. We're not losing those 6-pointers, which is why we're sort of keeping our noses ahead of some of the other teams around us. But look, still another, 20-odd games to go? A lot could change, but every Fulham fan will be very, very happy with the points tally at the moment. That goes without saying.
Just before I get the boys' opinions of Fulham and what they think, who... Obviously, we know about Mitrovic and how good he is, but who have been your sort of standout players? Who are your players that a few people may not know about that have really kind of stepped it up for you guys this season?
If we look from the back defence, goalkeeper Leno, great signing from Arsenal. We got him at a knockdown price, and he'd be worthy to play for any of the people on this show tonight. He'd be worthy to be a Newcastle keeper, Leicester keeper. I think Ash, you would cry out for Leno, I'm sure. We've got a great deal from him from Arsenal. International class. They've saved us points already this season, so he's been a great signing at a knockdown price. Defensively, still have some reservations, I'll be honest with you. That's where our weaknesses are. I think we've struggled to keep clean sheets, but we know we've got attacking competencies. And then Paulinho in that defensive midfield role has been awesome. I think he's probably been one of the best defenders or central midfielders in the Premier League this season. Wolves will be unhappy that we grabbed him ahead of yourself, Dan, but he's been immense. Look, he's got himself into the Portuguese World Cup squad. Why? Because he's been outstanding for Fulham, competitive, combative, can score goals, can lead on the pitch as well. He's been outstanding, and can we hold on to him next year if we stay up? That's going to be a problem. And so, but he's been probably one of the stand-up player than Mitrovic. But no, Harrison Reed, not blessed with talent, but he's getting the manager's getting the best out of Harrison Reed in a more advanced role because Paulinho's doing the jobs, in his defensive midfielder. You've got Pereira from Man United. He was a bit, I was a bit skeptical when we signed him, hit and miss at Man U, but he's good at set pieces. He's involved. He's scoring. He's assisting. So we can't ask more from him. And Willian, I was his biggest critic when he joined, but he's, last few games he's been outstanding at 34 years of age. So look, we've got attacking prowess in the team. We just need to make sure we've got enough cover for Mitrovic in the January transfer window and just tighten defence because we've got a few areas where we probably need a bit more depth just to protect our clean sheets and make sure we pick up more points, from our games.
No, I think there's some interesting players there. Is it did you say Paulinho?
Paulinho, yeah.
I tell you what, terrific player.
He's been terrific.
Very good player. Very surprised. I didn't really know anything about him until he came to Fulham, but he seems to have really, really turned it on. Look, D, you were kind of nodding your head. You were in an agreement with the Paulinho. But from your perspective, Fulham, have they surprised you? What do you like about them, and have they got a chance?
In terms of surprising, I'm not too sure. Well, of course, where they are right now, that's probably a bit surprising going into World Cup where they sit. But look, there's so many narratives that always get said about football. For example, we talked about Maddison. We talk about his attitude. Ash says there's no problem. Talk about Fulham. People compare Fulham to how they were with Scott Parker and how they spent money and all of this. They're not that side this year. They've actually got a good core. I know they brought in a few players, but they didn't have a similar situation. And then even like Forest, I know we laugh and joke about it, but yes, they did have to sign 20 players because they got rid of how many old players. That's why they had to bring these players in. But there's so many narratives. But with Fulham, I think the one good thing that Emilio said is that they've been unlucky not to win games rather than lucky not to lose games. I think that's a good indicator in terms of where they are right now. Of course, when the season goes on, there might be injuries or not, but Fulham have been playing well. Like I remember the first game of the season against Liverpool and even games against, what was it again? Brentford, where Emilio, was it that game that you lost? Was it last minute or so? But look, they've had a hiccup along the way.
Yeah. Well, we've been in Brighton at home. Brighton's first defeat was against us. Beat Brentford at home,
The fundamentals of Fulham in terms of how they're doing in the league, even when they do lose games, it's narrowly, or they've been unlucky to lose games. And you would suspect that as the season goes on, and in January, if they bring in a few players, that they will improve. So for me,
here he is.
He's at the bottom of the table. West Ham belong, but sorry, it put me off track. But yeah, in terms of Fulham, I think they're doing. Yeah, I think they're doing relatively well. They need to bring in a few more players, and you know what? They've been a side that I know people have mentioned it, but they've been pretty quiet in terms of how well they played. People don't really give them respect. They said that Fulham will come crashing, but they've actually played decent football and been unlucky for the majority of the season.
No, I think that's I think it's a fair point. Look, like you said, I've got a bit of a kind of skewed view of Fulham because obviously we played them. You got a man sent off early, but we played some really good stuff that day, and we beat you guys comfortably. And so maybe from my perspective, I'm not seeing what other guys have seen, but I've seen the way you played at Liverpool against Liverpool first game of the season. You guys should have won that game, in my opinion. You were really, really good.
Yeah.
Look, Rich, I'll get your opinion because I know you've got to go soon of Fulham. Have you been shocked by them? Do you think that they've kind of hit their ceiling with where they are right now? Do you think it might slip slightly as the season goes on? Because it happens. You have a really good start to the season, start like a flash, and then all of a sudden that kind of slows down. And that tends to happen to newly promoted teams. Do you think that would be the same for Fulham this season, or do you think they've got enough to keep going?
Well, yeah, I think they've definitely got enough. I think if they keep Mitrovic fit, he's been fantastic this season in terms of goals and just that presence up front. Like I said before, there's many teams that are looking for that type of striker, and Fulham have it at the moment. Like, yeah, Emilio said there, Paulini's been brilliant. Harrison Reed's been excellent, and the goalkeeper's been really good. So they've got good spine to the team. I think they've also benefited from the fact that their manager has, although this is a benefit and a negative in some ways, in that he didn't do fantastically well with his other clubs in the Premier League, but on the other hand, he's got Premier League experience and he's got something to prove a little bit in the Premier League, that he has got what it takes. But what you said, Pete, the system that they're playing at the moment is quite effective and is doing quite well for them. But that always, the second half of the season, teams get used to kind of how Fulham play and what their strengths are and what the weaknesses are and what they can do. So that kind of surprise package element gets sort of lost a little bit. So it just depends on whether they can adapt their style, whether they can keep one or two players fit and whether they can sign new players in January. But yeah, definitely a really good start to the season. And you would absolutely, what Emilio said, 19 points from the first 15, 16 games is they would have snapped your hand off for that. So they put themselves in a good position.
No, definitely. Look, Rich, I think you've got to shoot now, so I appreciate you taking your time to come on tonight. Great points as always.
It's great fun.
We'll review it later on in the season. We'll pick a date and we'll get together again and see who's in the chat, who's around the table, and see where teams are.
We'll do it before the last 8 or 9 games. That'll be good. See where we all are. Yeah,
sounds like a plan.
Yeah,
but great to have you, Rich. You take care, mate.
Take it easy, boys. See you soon.
See you later.
Bye.
As one disappears, one appears, and we've got Mr. Mr. Dan Lawless in the house. Although, have we? He's drifted off for a second. But look,
You're trying to be too much like West Ham. You're just having howlers already. He hasn't even spoken.
Howlers all over the shop. But like, look, Ash, Dan, I want to get your opinions on Fulham. What's what's your kind of opinions and reflections on Fulham this season?
They've been absolutely fantastic. I mean, the problem obviously Fulham have had every time they've come up to the Premier League is that they've struggled to stay up, and it's as simple as that. But it looks like they're doing more than that at the minute. They're playing really well. They're together as a team. I still think, I don't want to be a pessimist, but I still think they'll be in the lower half of the table come the end of the season. I'd like to be wrong because I really like Fulham, but I still think they'll be in the lower half. But Emilio is very realistic about it, and as long as that team gets 17th, it's a great achievement for Fulham because they can reinvest in strength, and that spine that's already there at the minute.
No, I think it's an interesting one. Dan, obviously, I think you'd like to have traded positions with Fulham this season. I think it kind of has been the case. I think we would have in another season seen you where Fulham are right now with the previous seasons that you've had. But what have you made of Fulham season? Are you surprised that they are where they are? Do you think they can sustain it, or do you think this is the ceiling? Do you think it's only ways down? And do you think you've got enough to dethrone them in terms of getting more points of them over the course of the season?
Which one? Who?
Oh, sorry, Little Dan. Sorry, I'm talking about right now.
Sorry, big bro. You got your time in a minute. Let me just talk Fulham for a couple of seconds, and you can have your battle with D, and I can get to bed. I don't think Fulham can sustain what they've done so far, but I still think they'll have enough come the end of the season to stay up. I feel like Marco Silva's ironed out a few of his, I don't want to say inexperiences, but maybe his flaws in the last couple of Premier League campaigns that he's had. I think they've invested quite sufficiently this summer, whereas last couple of times they've had some good players, but they've never really got them to gel. They've always been sort of on the back foot. But I think Marco Silva's got them playing a good style of football, which on top of Leno, Polina, Willian, and they're obviously getting Mitrovic in the goals. I think they'll be okay to stay up. I think there'll definitely be three teams that are worse come the end of the season, but I don't think they'll be able to sustain the sort of points ratio that they've got at the moment.
Interesting, very interesting. And look, Mr. Lawless, thank you for joining us. I know it's been a massively busy day for you. Lots and lots of travel. You've only just got in, but you took the time to come and join us, and I appreciate that, mate, as always.
Listen, you can't have a show about Europe without a team that's actually in Europe.
Yeah. It's time to go. It's time to go strip out.
I knew that was going to be one of the first things that came out of his mouth.
Just
the European football this season, the only ones, and he was always going to say that he was going to be the European representatives. But look, well, to be fair, it is facts right now. But look, you're in the Conference League, and look, you've made some pretty big calls that all of us all of us around the table right now have made a mental note up here. So look, that European Conference League is your saving grace, and we're all watching it very, very closely, because if that falls flat, I think before I get to you, D's going to get to you first. If you guys get knocked out of that competition. But before we get to West Ham, I want your thoughts on Fulham. Like, are you surprised by them? Obviously, a fellow Londoner club, just got promoted. Yeah. Sitting higher than you guys in the table. I put the league up right now. You look at Fulham, 19 points.
I've enjoyed not looking at this table. It's been nice. I've forgotten about it. I've forgotten it existed.
Yeah, I'm about to scroll down to put you guys in there. I've got to be honest.
Wow. West Ham right there. Yeah.
You guys
scroll a bit more down. Scroll a bit more down. Let's see who they're close to. Yeah, the European West Ham.
Above Everton still.
Big bro, it's tense for you. I'm only 4 off you, man.
Jeez, 20th, Dan. I didn't realise you lot were 20th. How'd that happen?
Four, but yeah, we've just we've
Jeez.
our Portuguese squad have been focused on the World Cup, isn't they?
True.
Look, Dan, what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts about Fulham this season? Do you think you can? First of all, do you think you can catch them?
Do you know what? If things continue like it is, no, but they are definitely a surprise package because it's just been a running joke. Like Norwich come up, Fulham come down, Fulham come up, Norwich go down, and like this could be it for them. This could be the bit where they get Premier League stability. Marco Silva seems like he's doing a good job there. Got some good players. They might have finally nailed it. Because they were throwing money at it last time. I think you spent like 100 million last time they was up and just spent it poorly. And this time it looks like they've spent properly. So it could be one of those. It could be a Sheffield United though, where they have that one good season and it all goes to shit next season. We'll see. I still feel like we can catch them, and I still feel like we'll have our renaissance of the season, and things will happen. Things have to change. That, you know what? The break came at the right time for us, and maybe the wrong time for Fulham, as Fulham was doing well. So we know, who knows when we come back from the break if they can get back that momentum, get back that speed, or they just come back a bit sluggish. So we don't know. I mean, it's a lot to ask for the team. Obviously, their first season back in the Prem to go the distance, but we'll see if they can go all the way and finish top 10. Top 10 finish would be massive for them. Staying up and that's not a knock, but staying up, like your first season up, and that's you just want a stable first season in the Prem. When we got promoted, that's all I wanted, and Sam gave it to us. So anything for them staying in that Prem and building on it next season is huge. So to them, like, whereas us, we need that. We need to finish high up the table. They could finish 14th and it's still a great season because obviously where they've come from. Whereas us, we need to finish up there. So maybe that hunger and desire might, I don't know, not be there. Who knows?
Who knows? Interesting one. But look, let's get on to West Ham. The only club we've not covered yet. But let's get on to West Ham now. Oh, is that Stu Penman? He's a massive supporter
That
of
is
the
his
channel.
burner account. Whilst he's off
I
stream,
predicted
he's
West
sending
Ham was
comments.
gonna
Lawless.
stop our proper club. You know what? To be fair, Stu Penman's a big supporter of the channel, and
Stu Penman knows ball.
He knows. To be fair, Stu Penman knows football. So
can we get D out and swap Stu Penman in? Yeah.
Yeah, Stu Penman. If we swap him in, there'll be
Stu
two
Penman
Lawlesses. It's his burner account. He's sending messages in his burner.
No,
account.
honestly,
No, Lawlesses. He's got his phone next to him. He's writing messages whilst I'm.
Nah, this is my phone.
Stu Penman knows his stuff, honestly. So the fact that he's put that's what he genuinely believes. So, look, in the Newcastle fan base, Dan, you've got a supporter in that fan base with regards to West Ham. So, you've at least got one or two in there. And yes, we've got we've got one of our FIFA representatives at the top of the screen reporting us in today. I am Stu Penman. He's put that in support of Stu Penman. Welcome to the show, Stu. Glad you are well. But look, let's get on to West Ham. And actually, we'll start with the point before you leave us, little Dan, because you just mentioned something that I didn't even think about. And I'm going to put the league up again. And the fact that you're only 4 points off West Ham. That's an interesting situation right there. So, look, Dan Lawless, from your perspective, are you thinking about Europe right now, which we were in the summer, and you're saying you're the only ones that are in the European competition, or are you genuinely worried about the fact that you could get relegated this season? What are your thoughts? Your last game, if I'm right in thinking, was at home to Leicester. Leicester beat you guys, took 3 points off you on your own patch. What are your thoughts right now with regards to West Ham? Because it seems like it's all over the place right now.
Yeah, so it's a weird one. There's games where we're completely shocking, like against Palace. So I don't like to mention that. Games where we're a little bit more on top, like Leicester, we have a bit more going for us, and we still lose. It's like it doesn't matter what we do. we can't get it going. We're in that rut, and that's why I was saying the World Cup seemed to come at the right time because it was really starting to get a bit toxic around the club. That feeling when you have them bad seasons, it was coming back, and it felt familiar. But it felt like that season when we had Moyes the last time, and Moyes came in for Bilic. So, but we're not going to. I don't fear relegation because I don't think there's a chance. I don't think. Well, of course there's a chance, but I don't think it's going to happen. Like hand on heart. But this is the thing now. It's going to be interesting. Like I said, with the World Cup coming and that break, it gives us a chance to have a reset. Problem is, first game is Arsenal away. So we're probably going to lose that. Then we've got Brentford at home. That Brentford at home, if we win that, it's a chance to turn a corner and put all of the sort of negative vibes behind us. But if we lose that game or draw that game, Moyes' job has got to be in question. They've said apparently he's got 3 games to turn it around.
Wow.
3 games. I think I read 5 points from the next 3 games, and the next 3 games are Arsenal away, Brentford at home, and I forget who the other game is.
It says Fulham, but I think that's changed probably.
Fulham. I think we got.
Now. But you can't be. We got Fulham. Why have you got Fulham on 17th December?
No. We got Arsenal, then Brentford.
We got Brentford, then Leeds.
Leeds, that's it. Then we got Leeds away, which is going to be a tough game. That's going to be hard.
That's a tough 3 games for Moyes to save his job. Arsenal away, Brentford at home, who are playing some decent football at the moment. Although they can ship goals away from home, but they are playing some decent football. And then Leeds away, Leeds not had at Ellen Road. That's tough.
But imagine if we lose them 3 games, we could find ourselves 20th because Wolves could very well pick up 4 points. Obviously, depending how early Portugal goes out of the World Cup, but they could come back and very easily potentially get enough points to go above us. And that's just something that can't happen. You can't spend 170 million quid and you're looking around sitting in the bottom 3. Like basically, if we lose to Arsenal, we could find ourselves bottom 3 on Boxing Day, basically. Depending if Everton pick up a win and Nottingham Forest or whoever's Nottingham Forest, like it's possible. So that can't happen. So Moyes' job, he has to turn it around soon because you can't imagine. Look, I know you guys want to imagine it, but I don't want to imagine it. If we go down after spending all of that money, that's a disaster. That's absolutely disastrous. That cannot happen at all. So, boy, they've got a long time to really think about this now. I'm really thinking about what they're going to do. But if he can't turn it around when we get all our players back, it's a weird one. Like at the same time, it was nice to have a break from West Ham, but another way, it's sort of like a stay of execution because I feel like we're in limbo now.
Yeah.
Like whereas like a lot of you lot can enjoy the World Cup and then come back and just hope to see your team continue form. We're just waiting to see how we're going to look like after the World Cup. And then like I said, we've got Arsenal. And if we lose that, we can't go, oh, shit, we've lost it. We have to go, oh, well, it's Arsenal away and they're top of the league. You know what I mean? And hate them games. Oh, it's a free hit. It's like, you know what I mean? So I can't really, until that Brentford at home, I can't really see what's what with the team. It's frustrating, man. And like I said, they're good, Brentford, at the moment. With a lot of fans, our fans want Thomas Frank. He's been linked with the job.
Wow.
So
very
I think we should go for Eddie Howe though. I think my Eddie Howe is my instinct.
I was waiting for it. I was waiting for it to pop off. Don't stop. Look, you can have Rafa Benitez. You wanted him.
You disappeared.
I didn't cut him off. I think it was Mr. FIFA man that was in the chat that he's hiding right now. He took you off on purpose because you mentioned Eddie Howe.
I mean, London Paul. You know what I mean? Like get him down the stadium.
I'm telling you, I don't think he wants to go to a smaller side right now.
Vieira would come though. Let's be real.
Here we go. He's starting on this again. Yeah,
I'm gonna get your thoughts. D, I'm going to get your thoughts on West Ham in a second, but I know Little Dan and Emilio, I've got to shoot quickly. But Little Dan, just before you go, your thoughts on West Ham and their potential fight for Europe. Is it more relegation than Europe, or do you think they can actually turn it around, considering that they spent 175 million in the summer?
Of 75.
No, I think they'll stay up, but I think they'll stay up. But I think Moyes will be out the door by the end of January.
Wow.
Wolves have Everton away, first game on Boxing Day. I'm really backing us to beat Everton away on Boxing Day because I think the Everton fans have already turned on Lampard. That'll put us 1 point behind West Ham after Arsenal beat them on Boxing Day or whenever it is. And then 14th of January, we've got West Ham at home. So maybe by the end of January, we'll be above West Ham. That's why I think Moyes will be gone.
Wow.
We don't have a good record at Wolves ground either. Like I've
you
been
do not,
there.
Daniel.
Every time I've been there, we've lost. It's awful. I remember last time I went there, we went there last Christmas time and saw us get beat, walked through all the Wolves fans, hearing them singing, and then watched E17 in the Market Square or whatever it is. And it was a somber evening. But then we went and got on the piss and it was all good. But we'll probably lose that. Yeah, I don't fancy us Wolves away. We always lose that. So that's what I mean. There's a lot of games here that you just look at and you think, geez, like where are the points coming from? And that's the problem.
Yeah.
So Wolves could be above us. By that Wolves game, if Wolves beat us, geez, man, we could be rock bottom. And if Morgan Way should be gone by.
Look at D. He's loving this talk. He's got a semi there.
No. The reason why I'm laughing is because he's been talking about European football all season. He's talking about rock bottom now. But you know what it is? This is the thing, yeah? Sometimes you have to go backwards to go forward. Sometimes you've got to destroy something to rebuild it, right? This is how we get Moyes out and we get a better manager and we rise like the phoenix from the ashes and we come back and take our rightful place. Or you bring Poch in and West Ham returns.
I still think we're going to finish above Palace. I still think we'll finish above Palace this season.
Yeah. When Poch comes in, he'll be sorted because Poch is really going to come to West Ham, of course. Yeah.
Listen, he'll come to West Ham over Palace. He'll come West Ham.
Yep. Vieira, everyone will come to West Ham according to you.
Dan, it's fake. Moyes is going to get sacked in January. Vieira's taking over, and Vieira's going to win the Conference League.
You know what? I would love to see that. These reactions, the tears, the fume.
Trust me.
Zaha's going in the summer. Elise is going to Newcastle in the summer. And Palace go back to the Championship to play the likes of Millwall and Leyton Orient and all the other London clubs that they're associated with.
To be fair, Dad, Little Dad, I would take Elise. I would 100%. I think he's a
there was a guy in the comment section earlier. Here he is, Aaron Robson. He said he'd have Neves, Elise, Zaha, and Mitrovic. I'll have what you're drinking, Aaron. I'm off to bed. Good night, everyone.
I love it. Look, Little Dan, it's been a pleasure to have you. I know you got to shoot, but look, we'll reconvene when we get to sort of February time. Because I know we had to go. But Emilio, just before you go, I want to get your thoughts on West Ham because then I want to get to Ash and Dee's perspective because these perspectives are going to be really, really interesting. But Emilio, you're sitting higher than everybody else right now that we've talked about so far tonight. What are your thoughts on West Ham?
Well, it's the same old thing. Fulham never get any respect for anyone from our local colleagues here, from the pundits, from the media. It's always Man City didn't go good or D exception. D and Ash. I know you gave us credit. Yeah, fair enough. But yeah, every time Man City didn't do this or Man United. Hold on, where's the credit to our team? But I don't see West Ham being in the relegation zone. I think they'll push on with or without Moyes. I think you'd be foolish to let him go. I think you've got a good squad there. Things aren't ticking. A few injuries. Too many games. Conference League is obviously disruptive, and I think you've got time to regroup. Wait till the restart the season, Boxing Day. But it's the other teams I want. I need West Ham to keep beating the likes of Palace, Wolves, Southampton. Pick up those points of the teams are more genuinely.
I'll tell you
like
that.
I'm going to say that. I'm saying it. Yeah. I see Southampton, Everton Wolves more likely to go down than West Ham. So I need the West Ham to keep beating getting those 6 pointers, pushing those others, keeping those teams in the bottom three, just to keep us selfishly up, where we want to be.
What is going on? What
Basically, West Ham are just like a feeder club. You're so irrelevant. All it is, you help us, West Ham. You're not involved in the conversation. You just beat these teams and help us.
This is like the Twilight Zone. What is going on?
For me, West Ham won't go down. I said West Ham will stay up. There's worse teams in that division. You need to find a bit of consistency, like you said, Lawless. Maybe the World Cup's come at a good time for you. Regroup, re-establish yourselves in the new year, and then come back fighting stronger. But you won't get into Europe next season unless you win a cup. But mid-table is the best probably you can hope for, and that's what you're probably looking for at the moment. And then maybe regroup and maybe replace the manager at the end of the season. I think it'll be foolish for you to get rid of Moyes unless you start losing 5-0 in consecutive games. It's just be foolish. Keep the stability, stay in the Premier League, and then rebuild next year with whoever you can get in charge at West Ham. But there's worse teams out there, and I don't think you'll go down. Will you finish above us potentially? But you were lucky to beat us at your ground. I thought all those goals are a bit controversial, but fair dues. You beat us 3-1. We'll see what we can do when we play you at the Cottage. But it's no team I've said is big enough not to go down, but West Ham have got enough quality there to stay up. There's certainly 3 worse teams in that division, and you're not one of them.
I don't think the Conference League is an excuse for us, though, to see why we're playing poor, because we have been able to play a second team in that competition. Last season we went quite deep into Europa League with a really small squad. Now our squad is much bigger. We're playing weaker opposition in Europe and have been able to rest like a lot of players, where we have some much bigger squad. And Moyes has been heavily backed, so I don't think he has any excuses. And even the injuries we've had, it's not like we've had injuries to key players, like big players like Rice or Flipping. We've had a few defensive injuries, but it doesn't really excuse how poor we are in front of goal. So yeah, that's the thing. I don't give us much excuses for why we've been so bad. And I think Moyes' decision-making, continuously playing out-of-form players, has done him no favours at all. And that's the problem. You don't just look at the results, you look at decision-making. And so when things are going bad and you're making crazy decisions, taking Ben Rama off when he's been our best player and keeping Souček when he's awful, and that's where it really, you start to turn the crowd on you and the fans on you. So that's why the pressure's on his neck.
Interesting. Look, Emilio, I know you've got to shoot, so I really appreciate you joining us.
No worries. Thank you very much.
You know what? It'll be interesting to see where you are, sort of end of January, February time, to see whether you're in the same positions. And look,
do you know what? Let me just say, I would take all of your managers right now over Moyes. I would take, I mean, Marco Silva, I have question marks over him, but he was always a decent manager. I mean, Everton is a tough club to go into, but he was highly rated. He looks like he's doing decent now. Vieira's a young, exciting manager. Seems to play good football. Brendan Rodgers, I think people were quick to turn on him. He hasn't been really heavily backed. What could he do with the money? And obviously Eddie Howe's looks like he looks like he's living up to the hype now. He's got the backing. The question marks were over his head. Could he do it at a bigger club? He's doing it. So yeah, it sounds mad considering how well Moyes has done over the past 2 seasons, but the football's just, he don't excite me. Do you know what I mean? As a fan. And I think, I would probably take all of your managers right now over Moyes.
And that's why, if we go down, at least we go down with a fight. We're playing good football, we're scoring goal. Yeah, we're conceding, but I'm happy to see us win 3-2, 4-3. Again, there's going to be some games we're going to get demolished, but that's only happened against Newcastle. But, it's one thing we can't complain. It's been an exciting season, win, lose or draw. So if we do go down, which I don't think we will, but if we do go down, then this week we've given it our best shot. So, I'm looking forward to the next, 20-odd games when we come back from the World Cup. And I'll see you at Sellers Park Day, hopefully, all being well on Boxing Day.
Hopefully. Well, hopefully that Palace side. We've been good at home. But I'm expecting a tough game. I'm expecting a tough game because we're pretty much next to each other, but yeah.
Come on, Fulham.
Come on, Fulham. See you guys. All the best. Take care.
Continue to
See you later.
Enjoy Fulham. You take care. Speak to you soon, my man.
See you soon. Bye-bye.
You know what's funny? Sorry, Pete. You know what's funny? He had to say, come on, Fulham, because because he knows that it's out of their hands. At this point, other teams have to beat Palace for West Ham to reach us because they're literally no man's land. We're talking about relegation about West Ham.
Yeah, but by the
not
time
about
we
Europe
play
football.
you next, we'll have our shit together. Do you know what I mean? And we'll slap you at your ground. So.
Oh yeah. By the way, hold up. Before you talk all this rubbish
Yeah,
that you were talking before when we done the preview, go on, give us credit. Because you wasn't giving us credit on West Ham Fan TV. You wasn't giving us credit on Twitter. We smoked you lot. At your own ground. You only had 2 shots. It was one of our easiest games. We don't win away from home. Pete and Ash will back me up in this. I'm saying we're dreadful away from home. But it was like a home game. It was like that was our ground. Passing it around you. Easy. Absolutely easy, Lawless. And next time around, when we face you at our ground, you might be able to beat us. But just know, when you go to bed tonight, just know that Palace absolutely destroyed West Ham.
We destroyed ourselves. Have you seen how we've been playing lately?
Listen what Emilio was talking about. You don't give credit to other teams. You talk about you destroyed yourself. You didn't destroy yourself. Palace destroyed you.
No. Yeah, you did some good stuff, but we were not good. There's a reason we are where we are.
All right, cool. You were not good, but before the game, I wish I saved clips. I need to save clips that every time I speak to you, I just have to load them up and back. You were talking big. You were talking about we'll beat Palace, we'll do this and that. You didn't have this chat about we weren't good and all of that. But now you want to talk about you weren't good. Come on, man. Give us credit.
Nah, listen.
Give us credit.
There's a reason we're down at the bottom, right? And it's not because every other team just happens to be amazing, and except for West Ham, right? We've been shit. We have been
but
shit.
You wasn't saying this.
No, I wasn't saying that because
this exactly.
It was still at that point in time. Obviously, we'd beaten Fulham, we'd beaten Bournemouth, right? So we'd gotten some wins, and it was like, okay, the new players are coming back, things can tick. We usually play well against Palace at home. It's usually a good game. It's usually a competitive game. It's usually end to end. So I thought, boom, come to Palace will come. That's one of the winnable games. That's one of the ones we'll get the job done in, and then we'll have some see where we are then. And
that work out.
That showed. But that game, that was
Leicester. You have them as well. You have them as well. That didn't work out.
Right, and this is what you say about credit, because anyone knows, and I think we did the show on 12th Man, right, just before we played you. What did I predict? 2-0 Leicester. I said it on that show. I said Leicester are having a resurgence. I said we're in trouble, and I predicted 2-0 Leicester, and that was the score. So there we go. That's case closed.
You're finally talking sense. You're finally talking sense about West Ham. Finally, you know that they will lose a lot of games. You know that they're not that side. By the way, I love this. You know why I love this show? We're on a Newcastle channel talking about West Ham and Newcastle. Pete, has he apologized yet? Has he apologized?
No.
What am I apologizing for?
Lawless, this is perfect. This is perfect for you to apologize.
To be fair, we haven't talked about Newcastle yet, so let's switch gears and then we'll switch back to West Ham in a second. Right?
Oh yeah, go on.
I still need to know what I need to apologize for, though. That's what I need to know.
You haven't given Newcastle the credit. You haven't. You keep
saying.
I'm
giving them credit.
No. You were saying.
I just think they're getting too much.
I remember when Newcastle first, when Pete first came on to the Race for Europe show, you and Tobes were saying, oh, so are we just going to invite Brighton? Are we just going to invite all the other teams, Fulham? That was your words, and you didn't give them credit. You were trying to act like Newcastle were like Fulham or like Brighton, when in reality, we know they weren't. We know they are. They're
up there. Them teams are up there, though. They're in the race.
No. And plus, in terms of the last 5 seasons, you keep talking about Newcastle spending 200 odd million. You spent 175 million and you're in a relegation battle right now, more than a European battle. And Newcastle are finishing third. So that's what I was saying. You haven't been giving Newcastle credit. Every time you talk about Newcastle, you talk about them spending money rather than what they've done. They've got players there like Almiron who they're flourishing that. And plus, spend the money. They didn't spend money and overpay on players. Guimaraes, they spent money on him, but he's now worth way more than that. So the money that they spent on players, they've got return on investment. So you need to give Newcastle the props and stop acting like them only money.
But this is the thing. I give them props, but my problem is people are disingenuously, right? And this is Potts, this is flipping everyone else, right, on that show. And they're blowing smoke up Newcastle too much. What I'm saying is, yes, Newcastle been brilliant this season. Absolutely deserve to be where they are. No question about it. Exciting manager, some great players. I've been one of the ones, I've rated Almiron for years, right? Even when people forgot, I've always thought he's a quality player. I've gone on to Newcastle previews and said, yeah, Almiron, I'm worried about him. He's a good player. Always said it. St. Maximin, love him. My favourite non-West Ham player. I think he's a great bloke. I think he's a talented player. My problem is the attitude that people have towards Newcastle when we was in the race for Europe, when we was in those positions, it was, West Ham are not in the race. West Ham are not in the race.
But look,
No, but we was.
We're saying it for a genuine reason. No, but you wasn't, because you've been playing all season long. You haven't been good in the league.
I'm not talking about this season. I'm talking about the past seasons when we was in Newcastle's position, right? People didn't give us this credit. People didn't praise us and say we was in the race. Even though we were top four, we were in the top four, we weren't in the race for top four, and people just looked past us. But because of Newcastle and because of their backing and who their owners are, this is the point that people have like, yes, we believe in Newcastle, we back Newcastle, not because of footballing reasons. If Mike Ashley was still the owner, or they'd sold to Simon Jordan or the Golden Sullivan or whatever, and they was in this spot, no one would be saying and talking up Newcastle the way they are as genuine contenders. They would look at us like they look at us and go, "Oh, they'll probably fall off. They'll probably fall off." That's not me having a go at Newcastle. That's me having a go at the people of other teams.
The bigger picture, though. When people look at the bigger picture with West Ham, you've only had 1 or 2 good seasons. So when people weren't talking about West Ham like that, it's because it's a shock.
How many good seasons Newcastle had? How many good seasons Newcastle had?
No. But let me land.
Go on, land.
West Ham had 1 or 2 good seasons under David Moyes. Exactly. Yes, I'm flying right now. But with Newcastle, all right, cool. You might have a point there. With Mike Ashley, they won't be in a position they're in right now. But all right, cool. They don't have Mike Ashley. So
exactly. So it's because of the owners.
But they didn't have Mike Ashley. But still, you have to give them credit. I remember when Newcastle were first onto the scene, when Pete went to the Race for Europe show, you were saying this. You acting like Newcastle can't make European football. You're acting like they've only had a few good games, whereas you're missing a bigger picture. Newcastle are here. Newcastle are serious. Whether I'm a Palace fan, whether it's Leicester, whether it's whatever team, you have to accept this. But you haven't accepted it. Maybe now slightly you're realizing that Newcastle are more genuine. But
I'm keeping the same energy people had with me when we was up there. I'm keeping that energy.
But you're not the same as Newcastle, though. You keep comparing West Ham to Newcastle. Newcastle are a bigger club than West Ham. First and foremost, let's get that right.
I don't think that's true.
West Ham highly. No, you rate West Ham highly. I get it, but
I think we're on level peggings.
No, Newcastle. We talked about this. Newcastle won a trophy before West Ham have as well.
What are you talking about? What? When did they last win a trophy? 60 years ago.
But then they won European football. Remember, we had this debate. I don't want to go back into this.
What was going on in January?
2008. Pete was talking about this. I don't want to get into this. But anyways,
what did you do? Win the championship.
For me, Newcastle are bigger side than West Ham. When you talk about Newcastle with Alan Shearer's and all them legends, I think Newcastle, in recent times, they've been a bigger club than West Ham. That's how I see it.
Recent times? What?
Yeah, when we're not talking about last 5 years or so, I'm talking about the last. If you look at the last 20 years, Newcastle are a bigger club than West Ham. If you take away the Mike Ashley era, Newcastle are a bigger club than West Ham. That's how it is.
So we only go
the success 1960s. Cool. If we're talking 1960s, then
70s, 80s. Yeah.
80s, yeah. That's you stop there, exactly. 80s.
That's
where we stop. Now we talk about. Exactly. Now we talk about more recent times. Newcastle, despite the Mike Ashley era, they're a bigger club than West Ham.
Most Newcastle fans didn't even see them.
The point is, you're here on a Newcastle channel. No, you're on a Newcastle channel, and you know exactly. Stop trying to twist it. You know exactly what you was thinking of or what you say. You could easily apologize and say, you know what, I was wrong. And Newcastle are a serious club. It doesn't matter about owners. It doesn't matter about owners because that.
You'll appreciate me, right? I'm just gonna say this, right? Pete and the Newcastle fans, when they all turn on you, right? And remember, there was a comment there. They'll hate us soon. When they all turn on you, And all of these people that were willing to praise you and go, oh, Newcastle, right? And if this sustained period of dominance happens and you get this back in, just remember who was real from day one and who was there going, oh,
What
well
do you mean
done,
about
little
real?
Newcastle,
What
when
do you
it's
think
a
the
novelty
Newcastle?
that you're up
So
there.
no. So Lawless, you're saying that Newcastle are going to drop off, right? Because you're saying when they turn on you. Why would
No,
people
what?
turn on Newcastle?
No. What I'm not saying they're going to drop off. What I'm saying is if they get this, if they become another Man City, yeah, that's when they're all going to turn, right? All of these people, yeah, the
They've not
Arsenal
turned on
fans
Newcastle
and the
already,
Chelsea
though.
fans.
No, they have turned on Newcastle, though.
No,
We
but they
talk
haven't,
about
because
here.
every time we're on the Race for Europe show, they're all sucking Newcastle off, except me.
No. The reason why they are, the reason why they are is because of what you are saying about Newcastle. You're not giving them the respect. That's why they're doing that. But let's be real. Newcastle are one of the most hated sides in the league right now. I think Pete would agree with that because of
Really?
because of the
I would have
since
thought
the
you were a
takeover.
Newcastle fan.
No.
The way you're
Since
going
the well, you used to be a Newcastle fan. If we talk about Race for Europe, Pete, if you accept them, maybe you can actually talk about Europe like that. But other than that,
Yeah, listen. So either way, I'm
Newcastle.
set. You've just got failure from day one.
When you was a kid, Lawless, you had a bit more sense. You supporting a bigger club than West Ham. I don't know what happened to you. You literally fumbled the bag.
Even
Right
though
now,
West Ham was better than Newcastle at that time.
No, but you could right now be a Newcastle fan, but it's all your fault. Once again, you fumbled it. But look, Newcastle are one of the most hated sides. They are. Let's just admit it. They are.
I've not seen that. Reasons. Pete, have you experienced any hate?
But that's us, though. That's the race. That's a 12-man podcast.
I've got to be honest. In terms of like various different fan like,
yeah, especially like top 6 fans and all these other fans, it's all been
honestly,
like, oh, well done, Newcastle.
Honestly, the hate has been out there. It's real. Like, I've got to be honest.
It is real.
The hate.
Yeah,
from the top 6 point of view, the hate has been real. Like, they don't like it. They don't like the fact that Newcastle have an owner or an ownership that have got such a vast amount of money. You've got to understand the situation in that you've got Sheikh Mansour. That I think his worth is something like 27 billion. Like, when you put it into perspective, the PIF, their worth is the best part of 380 billion. So it eclipses everyone in the Premiership, and then again. Like, that's how much.
I'm just saying, if you start to win league titles, you'll see hate. That's when you'll really see these people.
I'll be honest with you. Like, we and not necessarily from fans. And look, all the Newcastle fans that are watching, got over 100 watching right now. They'll agree with this, particularly the ones in the Loaded family that listen to the channel all the time. Is that over the 18 months of this takeover saga, we were getting hate all over the place, from whether it was from rival fans, particularly from the media, because they did not want this to happen, because they knew of the vast wealth of PIF. They didn't want Newcastle to be taken over by the PIF, because they wanted the top 6 to be continuous in what it is. Like, that's not anything to do with Leicester, to do with Palace, to do with West Ham. They did not want anyone to come in and break the top 6. And I think this is what Dee has been talking about right from the get-go, is that actually, although initially you weren't, not that you weren't happy with Newcastle being taken over or where we were potentially going, it's because I think if you thought, Danny, the amount of money that Newcastle would spend, but this is what the top 6 were worried about, is because they didn't want us to break the top 6, because once we break the top 6, and we've got a good chance of doing it this season, is that we are one of the only teams, and Leicester have been there top 5 2 seasons in a row. West Ham have been there 5th and 6th.
Don't count West Ham.
Around that conversation.
We know.
What I'm saying is that we've had teams over the years that have been up there and pushed the boat and asked the question. But with Newcastle, once we get there, and we will get there at some point, because we've got the backing to do it, is that we have got the financial clout not to go out and spend 200 million on a player, not to go out and spend even 100 million on a player, but we've got the clout to have the money available to sustain it, to continue to build and develop players and sign players, not necessarily these big, well-known stars, but continue to build and buy the best top young
But
players.
that's right, Pete. That's what comes my point is that you get the respect that West Ham didn't get, that Leicester didn't get. Even when that season Leicester won the league, you might remember this, actually, the conversation. They'll drop off, right? We're not hearing that about
drastically
Newcastle.
though.
Yeah, well, yeah, I know.
Season we were in the relegation zone, so and
I know
obviously
you did get to the quarterfinals of the Champions League. Was it quarters?
Yeah.
Quarters?
No.
We was a quarter,
Ash
yeah.
made a very good point though. They did drop off. I'm just like, that's what I'm saying. Teams, when people do say there's a reason behind it. There's a reason why people ain't using Newcastle.
No, people
and
said
saying
they
the same
drop
thing
off
that they're
that
saying.
season, D. People didn't give.
Oh, the season we were winning the
West
league.
Ham,
Yeah,
but-
the season
but
you drop
Lawless-
off that season.
But Lawless. This is how I see it. Yeah, West Ham under Moyes. I'll be real. You might have a good season or two, but in the long term, you're always gonna drop off. He's not that manager to keep you there. It's not sustainable. Whereas Newcastle, when you look at it, it's not just the manager. It's the whole project.
But it's
That's
the
why people
money.
are not saying it
The
because they're
project
serious.
is the money. That's
Okay,
my
but
point.
you spent money, and
Yes.
you're still not where they are.
But we can't do that every season. We
Yeah,
cannot
but they haven't
do
done this
that.
every season. They had Mike Ashley,
We
who
cannot
took money from the
compete.
club. You didn't spend
We
money.
cannot
To
That's the
be
thing.
fair, no, I think Dan's right. They can't compete, but equally, I don't think you'll see Newcastle spend. We haven't spent 175 million in one window. You've done that. We haven't, and I don't think you're going to see Newcastle United spend 175 million in any window in the next few years.
But if you look at it, and this is what I said about January, Pete, right? Where we spent 175 mil. We can't then go out in a January and spend 80 mil, and then go and spend 100 mil in the summer. It's not just about window to window.
What I'm saying to you, Dan, is that we spent 110, 115 million. We will probably go in January and spend 50 million if we want to try and get Maddison. And Ash knows about this because we talked about it earlier in the show. If we want to get Maddison, we might go out and spend 50 million on Maddison. And if anybody's watched our shows, loaded shows recently, when we talk about January, we're not talking about going out and Newcastle signing 3, 4, 5 players. We're talking about, and I genuinely believe this, we're going to go out and get one quality player, whether it's Maddison, whether it's Mudryk, whether it's.
But that's what I'm saying. A lot of teams can't do that.
We're going to go out and get one signing, and we've got 2 loans that we can access that we haven't even touched. And I think that's where we're going to get our players. And even then, Dan, this is the point that I'm making, that even then, if we went out and bought Maddison for 50 million and got a couple of loans or even one loan off the back of the Maddison deal, if we get that, we're still only spent just as much as you did in the summer.
Yeah.
This
is my point on it.
This is the point that I'm making, is that you spent almost... West Ham has spunked all of their money in the summer to sign the players that they wanted, and that's absolutely fine. But we're doing that over the course of a January and a summer, so we can't be looked at in a negative way for doing that because we've gone out there and bought the players over the course of 2 windows. I don't think we can be looked at negatively, like with that. I mean, Ash, do you agree with that or not?
Pete, am I right in saying that at the minute Newcastle squad has still got 6 Steve Bruce players in that lineup?
Yeah,
they are absolutely. They're playing out of their skin. There's a good structure at the football club. Yeah. The manager's doing a fantastic job. I think we just need to tip our hats off and understand that Newcastle are in the position they're in now. It's come a bit earlier than everybody expected. Let's be honest, it has. But all plaudits to you guys. Like, obviously, Leicester have been the team for 4 or 5 seasons that have been trying to break into that, and we've dropped off a little bit now. But there can't be any hatred towards Newcastle for it because they've
But
just...
Ash, can I just ask you this question though, right?
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, because when I look at Leicester and the West Ham fans, going around West Ham fans, we all looked at your ownership with envy. Everyone said, that's the example of the sort of owners that we would love to have at our football club. They understand the fans, understand the city, they do what's right by the fans, all of that stuff. But the problem is, they don't have the funds to be able to consistently fund that team, and now the well's sort of run dry financially, where they have a bottomless well.
Yeah, that is true, and I agree with the point you're making there, Dan, that they've got the money now. But at the same time, I do think that they've just got themselves naturally in a great position from playing great football and getting the right people in at the club in the background. It's come a lot earlier, and they have. In January, they're going to have to get some players in for squad depth because they've got to take where they are in the league now very seriously. They're a serious threat for that top 4 this season. And they will have to, any team would strengthen in depth. Arsenal have got to as well with the position they're in. And it's just a good position to be in that Newcastle have got the funds now and they're not on Mike Ashley team anymore. We've got to start taking them seriously. And
but they don't have the risk. This is the thing, Ash, right? See, West Ham, Leicester, Palace, even someone potentially like Spurs, right? If we splash money, that money needs to work for us because we can't go again if it goes wrong. And
then we're rich. We're rich. Maybe West Ham,
I understand that.
You're rich. What?
Leicester struggle.
We got billionaire owners as well.
Oh, yeah, you spent that. So you spent your way into the top 10. Is that what you've done, D? Are you bought it? You bought your position.
We didn't have to do that. Trust me. We didn't even spend this summer. We didn't have to spend this summer because we got a capable manager. You have to spend 170 million to stay up in the league. We spent what? We bought Decoria for 20 million to just be stable,
We'll see. Yeah. But Pete, the thing is, on Newcastle, this, there's zero. Eddie Howe has zero risk when it comes to what he can do in the transfer window because you can just go again and again and again and again.
It doesn't work like that. Dan,
it doesn't, if he gets that wrong.
It doesn't work like that.
Yeah, but they'll just get another manager.
There is massive risk with Eddie Howe. There is huge risk because if we get transfers wrong, right, regardless of how much money we've got to spend, there is an expectation, season upon a season, that we hit the standard.
Okay, Eddie Howe has the risk, but Newcastle don't. That's okay. Eddie Howe does.
What's the point, though? I don't
get it. What's your point in pressure?
You keep mentioning the owners. You mentioned Eddie Howe. You mentioned they got. Yes, we know they got new owners. Yes, we know they can spend money. Yes, we know that they're one of the wealthiest clubs.
Eddie Howe does.
But that's the reason why. That's the reason. That's what's changed with Newcastle. Not the only thing, by the way. Not the only thing. Because they spent well. They've spent well.
The money hasn't got them. Yeah, the money hasn't got them here now, right? Full credit to Howe, to the recruitment, and you're right, Ash. The infrastructure they've put behind the scenes so far, they've made smart, good footballing decisions, and they've gotten the right people in. And we've seen it. A lot of these money clubs have done it poorly in the past. QPR, for example, were another one.
United at the minute. Look at United.
Yeah.
It's not like they've not threw money at the team, and they've been a failure for the last.
A lot of money.
Yeah.
That's Everton. People don't talk about
Everton, exactly.
$500 million.
Yeah.
Everton spent $500 million, and look where they are right now.
Right?
So far, I'm giving credit. So far, they haven't just mindlessly thrown money at it. They've done things the smart way. The team and the manager deserves credit. But the point is, in going forward, they've got a low risk. And Eddie Howe has got risk because he has to do it. But they'll just sack him and they just go and get another manager and they throw money at that manager. And they can keep going again and going again. It's a low risk project because they have that bottomless pit of money. So when people say, "Oh, well, West Ham have spent this, and you've done this and that," yeah, we have, but we can't keep doing that, and that's the problem. Trying to compete, you can't compete with a team like Newcastle going forward. And my point was, people aren't saying that treating Newcastle differently than us because Newcastle are this great side, which they are playing well. Everyone's looking at Newcastle differently because of the money that they've got. Everyone's taking Newcastle more seriously than they took West Ham or they took Leicester because of the money they've got. Yes, Leicester did drop off because they didn't have that bottomless pit of money, right? And I think Rodgers is a good manager and he's proven he can turn it around, but he wasn't really backed this summer. And with us, we've done well, and now we've splashed big, but we've got a manager that maybe works better with smaller squads. But Newcastle can keep just going again. Get rid of this manager. Like with our teams, you have to question whether you want to sack a manager because you have to pay him off. Like we have to look at it and go, shit, if we sack Moyes, we have to pay him compensation. And then how's that going to balance our books in terms of giving a new manager funds? Because now we've got to give a new manager back in. You ain't got them risks. And that's what I'm saying. Yes, there is FFP, but there are ways around the FFP, as we've seen. FFP ain't been a problem for Man City, and they put these rules in. I'm telling you, there's always ways around it. Man City win these court cases like there's no tomorrow. So yeah, I mean, we'll truly see if FFP does come into play, but I don't think so. And if you get Champions League football and then you spend big again, and you spend big, you can keep yourself up there. But are you worried about FFP? Really seriously, Pete? Do you think?
No, because I haven't spent money.
No, but I mean, I know, right now, yeah, you can talk. Ashley didn't spend, and you've got money in the bank. But I'm saying once that run is dry, and you need to keep spending, do you think there'll be a problem there?
FFP will always be a consideration for us, and it will always be an issue for us more than any other club, because the Premier League are looking at us more closely than any other club. So yeah, if you're asking me, it is something that we're worried about. However, the one way that we can counteract that is what we've been doing recently. And if you haven't seen already, we've made deals with the likes of Monster. They're our official drinks sponsor of our club right now. We've just agreed a new deal with them, and we've agreed a sponsorship deal with Saudi, which is Fly Saudi, and that they're going to be our official flight sponsors for our trip.
Real
Interesting.
Yeah.
For our mid-season tour over there.
I bet that's a lucrative sponsorship, a very, very lucrative.
I have to say that neither of the Monster deal or the Set of Fly Saudi deal, no figures have been disclosed at this point. So what I'm saying is, look, let's be honest. It's not going to be a Man City agreeing a sponsorship deal with a business that is non-existent. It's not going to be that.
Yeah, because the rules have dictated you can't do that. Yeah, but there are ways around it if you go through a club that's already got shit. And say you could go to a Monster Energy drink, right? And you can say, listen, will you bankroll us X amount, and then you can make that money back up. We'll open up some gates for you here, there, and everywhere. There are always ways around it. Obviously,
what's wrong with that? That's a sponsorship. Of course, they get. That's a normal business.
No, because they would
sponsor. If you're sponsoring them, then of course Newcastle can say we might just do exclusive Monster drinks. Or there's nothing wrong with that. That's just
business. But what I'm saying is they would sponsor them way more, and they're not sponsoring them just for the brands. It's backdoor deals of not saying paying however much you would pay on a sponsor, 5 million, say 5 mil a season. They might go and say, give us 50 mil a season, but don't worry, you're going to make that back up. We're gonna put some money your way for this, or we're going to invest in that. Do you know what I mean? There's ways around it, and that's what's going to be interesting. Is if they.
This is the thing. Fly Saudi was supposedly been for the last year, apparently going to be our next shirt sponsor. So I think there was a surprise when they had their deal agreed as being our kind of flight sponsor, purely just for the trip to Saudi Arabia that we're going to have in December. So, but maybe it spirals into something a little bit bigger. But these are the kind of deals that we've got, because I tell you what, although these deals have been announced and kind of Daniel going, oh, here's the deals that are going to happen, blah blah blah. We had Mike Ashley have Sports Direct as our main sponsor at Newcastle and was paying us £500,000 a year. That was our owner of Newcastle United. It's an absolute joke. Nobody at Crystal Palace, nobody at Leicester, nobody at West Ham had a main sponsor of their club paying them £500,000 a year. It's an absolute joke. So this is where, although you might think about Monster and Fly Saudi and all the rest of it, this is where we need to build and get ourselves back to this point. So from my perspective, this is where we're at. But look, we've had a fantastic chat tonight on so many different levels. Thank you to everyone that's been on tonight. Dan joining us late on, I really appreciate it. You've had a busy day, and appreciate the fact that you're coming straight on once you got home. D, absolute quality. Ash, always a pleasure. Great points from a Leicester perspective. Coming to
Pete,
join.
before you go, sorry to cut you off. Before you go,
Yeah,
can
go.
we look at the league table once again? Because it's Battlegrounds Europe show.
Do not.
It's good
Do
to end.
you
It's
better
good to
hope
start
we
with the league table. It's good to end it with league table as well.
Oi.
We've got the league table for us. Can we just look at it once again to see
Oi,
to
Pete,
refresh
when
everyone? It's a World
when
Cup.
we
People
go
might
above
forget where everyone
Palace,
is.
I'm calling an emergency show when we go above Palace, right?
All right, so yeah, scroll a bit down, scroll a bit more down. Yeah, start up and then scroll down.
Wait. So Palace are 19.
Yeah,
We're 5 points behind you. We're only 5 points
All
behind
right,
you.
yeah, scroll a bit down. So who West Ham competing with? So I just remember
5 points.
relegation zone. Have you got relegation zone for us so we can see?
5 points behind
Forest.
you. 3 points behind Leicester.
Forest and Southampton. Look, Lawless. It's gonna be great, man. It's gonna be great. Pete, if you host a race for relegation show on this as well, I'm telling you, Lawless will be gladly on hosting it because he's gonna have a good season.
I've got to big up the main man here, Dan Potts. I know he's not well at the moment. I hope he feels better soon. He's been struggling in the last week or so. But Dan Potts is on another level with regards to the amount of different shows that he's got in place. Look, I'll be honest with you. I don't think any of us are going to be in that relegation show at any point. I think if anything, I honestly, for the 4 clubs that are here now, including Newcastle, I think Leicester, Palace, and West Ham, I think we're all gonna. I think you 3 are all gonna move up the table, and I think we're gonna have a more.
They can't really move any point lower, like West Ham.
There isn't
any more down to go. Really,
it would not surprise me. Honestly, it would not surprise me, and I don't know whether you guys agree. It would not surprise me that if we reconvened around February, March time and had a review show with the other guys that have been on, it would not surprise me at all if we had Leicester, Palace, and West Ham all sitting in the top half of the table. It would not surprise me at all.
That would surprise me.
Genuine, serious question, right? Pete and Ash, if you had to put money on it, who would you have finishing higher this season? Think about it strategically. West Ham or Palace? And then we can throw in Leicester afterwards, because I want you to take your bias out of it, Ash. But then we can maybe look at. But West Ham, Palace, who you having finishing higher by the season end with 5 points off them at the moment?
Ash, I'll let you go first.
Wow, do you know what? That is a tough question. I'm gonna go just on form. And I'm going to say I think Palace will finish higher this season, but I understand your point. In general, West Ham generally do obviously finish higher, don't they? But yeah. No. I'll go. This season, I think Palace are going to nip them higher. I don't think you'll go down. That's utterly ridiculous.
I think you'll stay up. I think it'll be tight. Look, Forest, Everton. We need to bring more Forest, Everton fans here. So Lawless, you having more of a discussion about you lot's upcoming games, the rest for relegation. I don't think you'll go down, but
right. We need. 60. I know Pete isn't as. I think you're looking at it short-mindedly there, Ash. But I respect your opinion. Now let's see. Long-term, long-view opinion. What do you reckon, Pete?
You know what? Ooh, it's a tough one. It's a real tough one. I've got to be honest, and this is my honest opinion. I still think that you're going to have Moyes in charge. So for me, I think Palace will be ahead of you.
Yeah.
Take
this comment off. I need to see Lawless's face.
For that, honestly, Dan, for that reason,
I can't see Lawless's face.
Take the league off. For that reason, because you've talked about Moyes getting sacked and getting 3 games, blah blah blah. I don't see it. I don't see the ownership getting rid of Moyes because they've invested so much in him. I just to replace Moyes, it's going to cost another significant amount of money, and I don't see them doing that. So for me, I think he's going to stay in charge, and I think it's going to be to the detriment of West Ham if he stays in charge. And I think Palace will stay ahead of you because of that. I do believe that genuinely. I do think though, if you are right, Dan, and Moyes gets chucked after 1 or 2 games. If you get spanked by Arsenal and then you lose to Brentford at home, say for example, that's a sacking offence. Like if you lose to Brentford and Arsenal, if that happens and you get a new manager in, it could all change.
It could all change. Yeah.
It could all change.
Let's ask that question, thinking, here we go.
Like,
I've got these on my side. He asked that question. All right, if you had to put money on, who would it be? And he's still flopped. They're still flopped. They're still bit Palace over West Ham.
I'm giving 2.
Even with Moyes, we're finishing above you, because if we still have Moyes, that means he's turned things around. If we still have Moyes, and this is much as someone who I don't want Moyes to stay. If Moyes we stick with Moyes, it's because he's turned it around. That's what's going to happen. So Moyes or no Moyes, we're finishing above Palace. Leicester is going to be tricky, but I don't think they have the squad. I think we have the squad to...
You overrate your squad too much. But anyways, Pete probably has to wrap it up. But you overrate your squad way too much. I've already compared this. Zaha's better than Benrahma. Elise is better than Bowen. And it's not even debatable. Your squad ain't even that good.
You're just talking form.
No,
let's see.
These players, Bowen was in form. Where is Bowen now?
Zaha's probably going to go Newcastle in January anyway, isn't it?
No. But all right, cool. But Zaha's still better than Benrahma, and Elise is still better than Bowen. Your squad ain't that great, but that's a convo for another day.
We'll see.
You have a better squad than you.
We'll spat his up.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Mark Gay, Joachim Andersen. Joachim Andersen playing the World Cup right now for Denmark. I was just saying that Mark Gay is highly rated. Tyreek Mitchell, left back. Declan Rice is good, but apart from that, Flynn Downs, nice. It's cute. Your squad is nice.
Flynn Downs kind of turns you down, by the way.
One of our big followers of the channel said we don't want West Ham going down. Too big of a club and proper fans. So there is that.
Hopefully they stay up for Lawless' sake. I really want West Ham to stay up. It'll be good. It'll be a good season. Relegation battle.
Equally, Michael Palmer, big fan follower of the channel, said Vieira is an outstanding young manager. Moyes' time is done.
Yeah. I think he's basically saying that Vieira's taken over from Moyes. I think that's what he's saying.
No, I don't think Vieira
I don't know about that. But one thing, just to finish before I go to the sponsors very, very quickly, one thing I think we can all agree with, Everton to go down.
Yes.
I think so.
Please, Everton go down.
I think they're in trouble.
We kept them up. That's why I'm pissed off. They always beat us, and then all of a sudden they just if they didn't beat us last season, they would have went down. I mean,
that game was a joke. You lot dropped the ball big time, man.
Yeah. The worrying thing about them is they're losing a lot of games at home, and that's the worrying thing with Everton at the minute.
Did you say that you've got them next, or is it you who've got them? And who's? Wolves.
No, we beat them at Goodison. We beat them.
Yes. We lost 3-0 to them. Flipping hell, man.
Yeah, so boy, I hope they go down big time. I fully agree. I would love it. I would absolutely love it. But
I don't really care about Southampton, but they'll probably go down Southampton. I don't know with any manager. I'm not really.
Boy, imagine Palace go down. Imagine.
Lawless, forget about that. Imagine you go down, because it ain't only me. You got everyone after. You're talking about European football. If you go down, you better take a break. Because boy,
but wait, if you still win the Conference League, we're still that still puts us above you.
You'll just be another Wigan. You'll be a Wigan. They'll play European Football Championship. Great.
Listen, but Wigan have a trophy. You don't have one. You don't have one. You have 0 in your history. So listen, don't chat to Wigan.
Yeah, all right, cool.
You can't chat to Wigan. You can't even chat to Wigan.
Boys, we'll be here all day, and I wish I could, because it's been an absolute amazing chat. D starving. Ash has been here from the beginning. Dan, you've been traveling all day, and you've been, you've shot straight back in and come on, which I really, really appreciate. I'm just going to run through the sponsors really quickly. But firstly, anyone in the chat, we've had way over 120 plus watching tonight live in the show. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel and click that like button to let other fans know the show and what we're all about. So if you haven't already, do so. Shyburns, our fantastic channel, www.shyburns.com. Fantastic support with all things related to mental health. As well as that, we have a massive t-shirt collection. As well as that, we've got some live pictures of the away day shirt, the one that I'm wearing right now. So get involved in that. Some of you see it on the Away Day show. Got a new selection of hoodies, hats, various different things with regards to Shy Burns, to get involved in that as well. Pins and prints. If you want your pins and prints with regards to all things Newcastle, old and new, you got the Miguel Almiron goal against Fulham. Glad Emilio isn't here to see that. You can get your pins and prints available. And then we've got Machine House, Marty, with his new Newcastle United local range of clothing. Get involved in that too. And then we've got the Geordie Rise, Dean, as well, with all things Newcastle United. And we've got Uggy from Australia modelling the gear. And of course, we've got a fantastic new sponsor, the Radiator Shed. Russ has been in the chat tonight, made some great comments on all things Newcastle United. And we've got Dan Lawless and D in the doghouse, in the prison, as it says in the picture. And again, top quality radiators, all designed and manufactured in Italy. Aluminium rads, very environmentally friendly and perfect for heat source pumps. They offer a home survey service and will install if required. And I tell you what, there is a fantastic sponsorship for all members going to be available in the Christmas period. So keep an eye on that. And of course, Russ's other partnership is the Install Works Northeast partnership. Get involved in that too, and some radiators that are available to us. We are under 200 away to hitting that 5k subscribers mark for only a year and a half being on this channel. It's a fantastic feat for us. So please click that subscribe button. And if you want to join a member, $1.99 a month, go and click that green or blue button as it is there. You can only do it if you're on a laptop. You can't do it off your phone. So click on that. And of course, all shows are on Spotify and Apple 24 hours after the show has ceased on YouTube. So get involved in that too. Massive thanks to everybody that's joined on the show tonight. Really,
you got more sponsors than Newcastle. Jeez, Loaded Mag trying to beat that FFP. Yeah, you're trying to YouTube
it's like an end credit to like a Marvel show. Like, you know, like 2 post credits. Me going on for like half an hour.
You guys are doing well for yourselves. It's good to see.
No, look, we're a channel that always likes to support the local area, and we've got fantastic sponsors. But yeah, you're right. I don't think we'll have as many sponsors as Newcastle for very long. I don't think we're at the end of our sponsorship. I think by the time the World Cup finishes, we might have 1 or 2 more. But let's see. Look, boys. It's been an absolute pleasure. Really appreciate you guys being on, as well as the likes of Emilio, the likes of Little Dan, the likes of Rich. It's been great to have you all on and talking all things Newcastle. And look, as I said, part 3, if we look around sort of February, March time, and we'll evaluate where we are at that point, we'll get you boys back on with some more thoughts and opinions about all things Newcastle United. So we'll and of course all the other clubs. Hopefully we're still in the top 4 and we can have a conversation genuinely, Dan, about whether we can actually stay there. So let's see. But
maybe apologize then.
I'm going to stick to my guns, and just before I go, I'm going to stick to my guns. I think Leicester, Palace, and West Ham will all be in the top half by the time we have our next conversation. I might be wrong, but I'm going to put it out there. And you know what? If I'm right, we'll have a great discussion, because I think the discussion is going to be very different to what it is tonight.
Yeah.
Fair enough. I don't think there's enough room for all 3 of us. Someone's got to go. Yeah, and I'm looking south. I'm looking south. That's what I'm going to say.
Yeah, well, I'm
boys,
sorry, but we don't know where he's going, but yeah.
Boys, it's been a pleasure. I'm going to let you go. And of course, the top manager of the month, we're going to leave it to how you like that. You guys take care. Have a fantastic evening. How you like